Joe Biden snapped at this TikToker and threatened to throw his phone because he got asked about Israel. It was a very touchy subject for the man who is ailing and whose brain doesn't work. And there's an update. I guess G7 leaders are actually really concerned. It's the worst Biden's ever been after he wandered off. And now there's a fact check that's popped up on, this is funny, Libs of TikTok posted this. And then Instagram said, fact check, Joe Biden wasn't actually wandering off from the ceremony. He was greeting someone else. And it's like, dude, we can see him wandering away from the ceremony. Even if it was to greet someone else, he's lost his train of thought. So we'll jump on that one. 538 has flipped. They were projecting a Biden victory, and now they're projecting a Donald Trump victory based on their simulations. And then, of course, a real fun story. The FAA is investigating counterfeit titanium in airplanes. So if you weren't already scared to fly, I think they're desperately trying to make you scared to fly because they want you to live in the pod, eat the bugs, and they want to get rid of cow farts. So we'll talk about all of that. But before we get started, head over to castbrew.com. and pick up your Ian's Graphene Dream or Alex Stein's Primetime Grind. Of course, we have Appalachian Nights. If you like the show, support our work by buying our coffee. It is some of the best coffee, if not the best, you will ever have. It's honestly, Appalachian Nights is my favorite. It's the only thing I like to drink. Also, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member to support our work directly. As a member, you are keeping the show alive. And you'll also get access to our uncensored member call-in show Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. And as you can see on the screen, we have a typo. I noticed that just now in our Mike Benz. It says uncensored, which I don't know what that means. It means I typed wrong when I made the graphic. If you want to see the typos go away, it means we need your support because we apparently can't afford copy editors. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Jim Antle.
Good to be here, Tim. I'm editor and writer at the Washington Examiner. Been at the District of Criminals for a long time.
You want to pull the mic a little bit closer?
Surely.
Yeah, you can get it right up in
hear
there.
me?
And Jeremy's back from this morning.
That's right. I made it through the gauntlet. I had to eat the other two guests, but I've made it through.
He actually did it pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we're good. We're good. He earned the seat. Ian is here.
You digested them quickly. Well done. And yes, hello, everyone. I'm back. Good to see you, Ian Crossland.
Hello, everybody. My name's Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. How you doing, Serge?
Yo, I'm good. Let's get started.
Yeah, real quick, too. I guess we were just really excited for Modern Horizons.
Yeah,
3's.
I want to talk about magic. We were just going hard for about 20 minutes.
I attempted to ruin the show by telling them a new magic set came out 30 seconds before.
I mean, I knew I've been looking at the set, but I didn't know it came out today.
And Phil plays. That's kind of what got me. He posted to Ronnie Radke's post. You responded with a Morphling, and I was like, oh, it's getting hot in here.
Morphling Tolarian Academy was the best.
I know.
Oh, wow.
It's
And
such
we have that. It's banned, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Tolarian Academy, we probably have it in the
We do.
band. Unfortunately, because
all
you
the
and
bands.
Crigler wouldn't play blue against me.
those
Full
are
disclosure.
Those are actually on the ban list.
It's broken, dude.
Yeah.
If it's banned, I get it. It's a powerful. The Tolarian Academy I'm talking about. But it's like
He knows what that
it was
is.
the crux of so many of my decks from the moment it came out because I'm
Academy?
obsessed with artifacts in blue. Yeah.
I think listeners want to hear you explain how Magic the Gathering is played.
Let's jump to this first story. As an aside, did you know that The Gathering was supposed to be only the first set? And they were actually going to call it Magic: Arabian Nights when the expansion came out. All right, here's the real news for people who are constantly going like, I have no idea what they're talking about, nor do I care. From the Daily Mail, what triggered Joe Biden to lose his temper at TikTok star and threaten to throw his phone at a White House party as the president scrambles to earn love from influencers? How about we just get rid of that what and write Israel? Israel triggered Joe Biden to lose his temper. In fact, we'll just, here you go. Let's, oh man, that's, what is this? This is too much text. Okay, I normally like to change the headlines by inspecting, but I don't know what they're going on with their inspection. So this is the gist of it. Here's the video.
As a member of the press, my name is Jonathan Katz. I actually live in Charlottesville.
Oh, do you really?
Yes. And I'm wondering why. So you made a statement the other day about the student protesters on college campuses,
Yes.
in which you basically remarked that they were anti-Semitic protests. And I'm wondering if you still stand by that statement, and also why you just signed a bill giving $26 billion more to Israel in the midst of what is plausibly considered a genocide by the ICJ.
The answer is twofold. Number one, Israel's security from the region is essential. It's essential. That's fundamentally different than how Israel acts in Gaza. I've been, as you probably know, putting extreme pressure on the Israelis to back off and open up humanitarian access. Open up humanitarian access to Gaza. and I think we're getting close. And,
You basically proposed your own Gaza flotilla. You were gonna,
beyond that,
yeah.
and I'm pushing hard. And if they're not going to volunteer to do it, we're going to impose it.
But can't you use the
Show you
power?
a picture of you
With my father.
with my husband's
I'm
father,
Bill Bader's son.
Bader.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No.
You can barely hear the guy muttering. So apparently in the next portion, he says, I'm going to throw your phone.
No, Bill.
Yeah.
Let me just pull the quote because I don't want to listen to this guy mutter. So here's the video of it. Here's him holding his phone. Do they not have it? Is this it right here? Why are they wasting our time with this? Watch to the end. He had a chance to that's the same video. So there you go. Biden grew angry at Katz, suggesting he would throw his phone before aides intervened. The New York Times reported Friday that Biden and Democrat allies are working furiously to build an army of social media supporters who will create pro-Biden content for social media. The reason why it won't happen is that the users of TikTok who are in the appropriate age bracket despise Israel. And so all that's going to happen is they're going to bring in these woke progressives and be like, hey, look, Biden, promote him. And they go, you're a genocide Joe.
Yeah, I mean, they're even having that problem with their White House staffing, and that's, a much more thoroughly conventional group of people that you're drawing from than what you're going to need to have like a successful social media campaign. And, the demographic that they're going to be hiring from is just not going to want to make this kind of pro-Biden content. I don't even know what the content would look like.
What do you see the future for the Democrats that are, on the Hill now, that are looking for staffers, that are looking for young people to actually do this stuff? I mean, you're aware of the, what is the White Staffers Twitter page and stuff. You know about that. So it's like, if that, can you, bring the thing
About a fist length from your mouth.
What do you make of that kind of stuff being in the government? I know that most people don't understand that this kind of attitude is something that's actually permeated the federal government now. So this is a real problem that we have to deal with. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's a huge generational change in the Democratic Party, and it both parties have to deal with generational change. But I think when you're the more progressive of the two political parties, you've always got these people who are going to devour the previous, generation of the revolution. You're always sort of being chased further and further leftward, and it's a real challenge in terms of staffing. And the staffers in a lot of these offices really do drive how the members think about lots of things. And I think that's particularly true in the House, where you have lots of members who aren't very experienced, who haven't thought very deeply about issues before. But it's true to some degree in the Senate, where you have people who are very old. You have the opposite problem. There are people who've been there forever, think the internet is a series of tubes. So if you're going to, do anything to this internet thing, it might be around for a while, guys. It might be a real permanent thing. So we need to find some young folk to do that. Huge problem for the Democratic Party. And, I think this is a particular issue where the Democrats can't really, on healthcare and other stuff where you've had young activists have certain views, the Democrats at least know how to speak that language. And it's still a familiar language. It's been a familiar language to them since the New Deal. But the Israel stuff is a real rapid change. And I think the members are really trying to chase the staffers at this point because they think that's, they believe that children are the future. Teach them well, let them lead the way.
I think Democrats are pulling a Blockbuster video, right? They had the internet early on. It really helped their campaigns. Right. But now they're too heavily focused on corporate press narratives. And what happens then is, by ignoring the development of social media, the algorithms that were on these platforms, and what these activists were up to, they have basically allowed the emergence of staunch anti-Israel sentiment, which coincides with all the woke policies. It's the oppressed versus oppressor. And now they've lost, which they have gone the path of Blockbuster in ignoring the advancements that were happening around them, resting too much on, hey, look, we got the older vote. The older vote matters more. We're going to win that vote. They're watching MSNBC and CNN. And now that these young people are entering you got Gen Z and millennials now, younger millennials, and they're all active on these social platforms. And the overwhelming majority of younger Democrats hate Israel. Biden's screwed. So this is why you're seeing him actively now speak in favor of Gaza and Palestine, opposing Israel, whereas you still have this issue where most Americans are probably between they like Israel or they're Israel neutral, and the left is staunch anti-Israel. The Democrats aren't going to be able to win a majority playing both sides.
Well, and even before Gaza, Biden had a lot of problems with younger Democrats. I mean, there was a poll even before the midterm elections that showed that 94% of Democrats.
You think they were aware of it? You think they were aware of it, though?
I don't know how aware of it there was, but the New York Times had a poll that 94% of Democrats under the age of 30 wanted a different nominee in 2024. I doubt that the numbers have gotten any better. If anything, they're probably roughly the same or worse. So young people, even when they didn't have an ideological reason to not like Biden, other than that he was old and not like them, now they have an ideological reason. This has given them an ideological reason. And so they're going to have to find, that's why they have the big focus on student loans, student loan forgiveness. They have to find some hook to get these people to show up and vote for Democrats and for Biden. Not sure how much it's going to work.
Do you think that this is mostly good for the Republican Party, like bringing in more of the sort of, more
Crazy leftists?
I was actually going to say bringing the billionaire Jews into, into the Republican, it's pushing them out away from the left is sort of my impression, but I don't know. I'm not that, deep. So,
it's obviously anything that's bad for your political opponents is probably good for you. Right, to some degree. But there have been some polls, like New York is not a state that's really in play, but there have been some polls that show Trump doing very well with Jewish voters in New York. Michigan obviously is a state that Biden is very worried about because of Muslim and Arab American voters in that state. I do think that at least in the immediate term, some of the Democrats' divisions on this issue do play to the Republicans' benefit. But obviously, if one party gets crazier, then it isn't always necessarily good for the country, right?
Sure. But you got what was her name? Claudine Gay got fired at Harvard, and that was largely because I think Bill Ackman and probably some other people who weren't as public about it sort of orchestrated that.
Their donor.
The sort of this donor class. And so, there are obviously trade-offs to having those people in your coalition, but they're certainly more up for play. It appears, than they were in the past.
And there's not a big countervailing force that there was in the Democratic Party in the Republican Party against that.
Going back to the first story that that brought this up, Biden saying he's going to throw the guy's phone. Just shifting the conversation, I think this is indicative of dementia.
He couldn't throw a phone.
He couldn't throw a phone.
That's a lie.
But bursts of anger.
That is
something. Yeah.
He can.
Can he raise his arm fully above his?
I don't think so.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think he could.
Highest he goes is cornholio.
Yeah, that's and cornholio hands is another sign of dementia.
Yeah.
So they say bouts of anger are a result of frustration, loss of temper is a sign of dementia. It's imagine this. The way I'm sure everyone's had an experience where the word is on the tip of your tongue and you just can't remember it. It's frustrating. You're like, oh, what's that word? Why can't I think of it? No. Now imagine that's your day every 5 times an hour. You're struggling to remember things and you're like, I can't remember what I was just doing. You say the wrong country. You're getting frustrated with yourself. Then some dude walks up to you and says, I want an answer on an extremely complicated and difficult political subject. Right now, I'm recording you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the rage is not because he's demented. The dementia limits his capacity. He can't think about how to respond. He knows he can't remember. He knows he can't give a good answer. And he's just been put in a position where he cannot lift this heavy object. So he snaps. Throw your phone.
Well, it actually makes me want to vote for him a little bit, though. Because we're trying to tear down barriers. We're seeing new classes of people become president, and we haven't had an openly demented president yet. And let's tear down that barrier.
He's here.
Well, we didn't know. It wasn't as obvious. Now everyone knows. So now we can really say and prove that a mentally deficient man, a literal retarded man, can can be president. They can be president too. And so that's a chance for people who want to show that's possible.
Biden had to end his first presidential campaign 37 years ago because a guy came up to him, said things he didn't like, and Biden had to yell at the guy, number one, and number two, try to convince the guy he was much smarter than him by inventing all of these academic credentials that he didn't have. And so, even as a relatively young man, he was yelling at people to get off his lawn, and it was sort of a political problem. Not going to get better with age.
That was in 1988 when he was running for president?
It was in 88. He didn't make it all the way to 1988. So it was for the 88 cycle, and he's yelling at a voter in 1987, and, they found out even the stuff he was yelling at the guy wasn't true.
And wasn't he found liable for plagiarism, and that's why he dropped out of the campaign in 88?
He also had been giving some speeches that were actually speeches from the British Labour leader Neil Kinnock, talking about being a young coal miner boy and all this kind of stuff. And so even some of the tendencies that Biden has now have been sort of long-term tendencies, but they really just get worse if you're old and you're sort of slower, and the jokes don't come as freely, and the backslapping seems a little more awkward. But I mean, some of this stuff is just sort of, taking the Amtrak to all of these historic events that maybe didn't really happen. Like, Biden has had a lot of these tendencies for his entire political career. Having him as an 80-something-year-old man as president, it's really kind of terrible.
There's this guy, someone was mentioning part of the reason why people can get demented in later life is because they have a lot of secrets, and they're just constantly forcing themselves to shut their own thoughts down because they don't want to accidentally tell you their secrets. And so if Biden's got all these family corruption secrets of like what Hunter did, orders he issued to Hunter, to his brother, his brother Joe? James.
Yep.
And now he's like sunsetting, how convenient for him. Let's ask him what corruption. I don't remember. I can't recall. Like Reagan apparently may have been going through some similar stuff in his late career.
May have been?
Yeah, where he was like, I don't remember. I can't remember. Sorry.
Well, no, that was a
retire.
tactic in court, but he did have Alzheimer's, and it's likely that it was starting when he was finishing up his what's it called? But lying about about what he knew and what he didn't know. That was just a court tactic. I don't buy that there was any I forgot, and he actually forgot. I think it was just him covering his butt. So,
well,
plausible deniability is what it is.
In The Sopranos, when Uncle Junior,
Yeah.
beats his first trial by faking dementia, but ultimately by the end of the series he has dementia.
Biden's down to 83% on the betting markets, 83 cents. So there's a the markets have him have a someone
But
other
that's the
highest,
Democratic Party.
That's you're right. No, the presidential nom. So the fact I'm just saying that the perspective is higher than it's ever been. That it might not be Biden. I mean, 17% is not that high still.
Or to clarify, the betting markets are saying that the Democrats will nominate someone else.
17% chance
Right,
is what the
yeah.
betting markets are saying.
Wow.
That's the highest it's
That's a
been
value
so
bet
far?
right there.
Highest it's been in a while. Yeah.
It's a value bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put in $5, you win $100.
They gotta run somebody else. What are they waiting for? Announce. Give yourself a
It's like
chance.
$25. My math is
It's
weird.
I mean, just taking him down is it's a complicated game. There's not one clear way to do that.
The superdelegates can pick whoever they want.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be the incumbent.
The Republicans don't have superdelegates, right? Just the Democrats?
Yeah, but it's the way.
Right. There are some uncommitted delegates on the Republican side, but the Democrats are the only ones that have all these elected officials, party bosses who get to be superdelegates, and
Yep.
they're not bound to anybody.
Rigged.
The Wall Street Journal came out and said Biden's mentally deficient recently. So more and more of these.
Oh, did they?
I think it was that. If that was the New York Times, it's the more institutions that are doing this. That's actually what has to happen for. How it happens.
I just say that because we had Matt Gaetz on, and this was the night that they held Garland in contempt over the her recording, which it's the investigation into Biden, and they're saying it's executive privilege. We can't release the recording despite the fact the transcripts come out. And the reason is because people think Biden's going to sound really bad, like his brain's failing. And, Matt was just like, really, do we really need that recording? The man appeared to have crapped his pants on stage at D-Day. There's nothing on that tape that's going to be worse than anything we've already seen from the man whose brain does not work. And I'm like, that's true.
Well, you got to hope they don't replace him if you want to see the Democrats lose. I think.
I agree. I'm pro Biden. I'd say Biden all the way.
It's one of those at what cost victory loss things. What's the opportunity cost of getting that guy into your party? Your party wins, but at what cost? That you have a losing leader now, so you don't want to promote a loser or someone that's incontinent or incapable. Or someone that's going to misunderstand
incontinence
mental.
does come and go, That's not a consistent.
That's true.
constant,
And I'm just assuming he's incontinent. He might not be. I think he's just looking for a chair.
I don't. That's
my
that
guess.
makes no sense. The chair's right behind him.
know.
Everyone is standing.
That's
okay.
the dementia. You didn't know.
Here's the issue with the whole D-Day thing. Okay, Let's just stop and try and be rational, logical, and do some math. There's 4 people standing up. They are to be standing for the beginning of the ceremony. There are chairs right behind them. Joe Biden does a weird squat with a grimace, stretches upright a little bit, and then squats down again. The first thing I thought was, is he pooping? Like, this is like a weird thing to do. Instantly, excuses begin to emerge for what it may actually be. I've heard his posture was hurting him and he was trying to straighten his back. And I'm like, okay, it's maybe. And the other was, there's an invisible chair he's trying to sit in. No, there's a visible chair right behind him that he did not actually sit in. So if we're doing math to break down what we think may be the most reasonable, I don't know what is. What I can tell you is there's probably a double-digit probability he crapped his pants.
It could have been amalgam. Like he started to sit down looking for a chair, but then when there was no chair, he tensed up and tried to stand back up in one of those tensions where
There's
like,
a chair
oops,
right
I
behind
accidentally
him.
crapped myself.
There's a chair right behind him.
But it was too far out of his view. Like he can't
the
turn
chair that
more
he
than
eventually
30
sat in
degrees.
is right behind him. That's why I'm like, I don't understand where that is not in the equation. The chair is right there. And some argued that when Jill Biden scratches her face, she's actually going, Joe, don't sit down. Keep standing, keep standing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is making many assumptions. We are trying to make the least amount of assumptions in this, in which case his back hurt is a maybe, but it's kind of a weird thing to do because your back hurts. That's probably a lower probability. Then there's 15 to 30% of men over the age of 80 suffer fecal incontinence. That's why they sell diapers. Biden has been accused on numerous occasions of having crapped his pants. There's been numerous reports that have flown around, rumors or otherwise. And so I think it's fair to say, I don't know, call it 10%, call it 20% probability that Biden actually crapped his pants. People, it's like the question people really want to know.
But he sat down afterwards. I didn't watch the rest of the video, but he ended up sitting after that because he wouldn't have sat in poopy pants.
I mean,
And how long was that ceremony for him to have to sit there like that?
whose vote is like hinging on how tight Biden's butthole is? Like, are there really
Definitely,
votes?
it factors into my
Yes,
decisions.
the number one issue among voters for the month of May was the failing. It was Joe Biden's mental.
Mental.
No, not mental. I'm editorializing. It was failure in leadership. Okay. And which broadly put is Joe Biden is clearly incapable of doing this job. And amazingly, April immigration was the single largest factor, according to Gallup. When May came around, the capabilities of the president became the number one issue among voters. And there's only one conversation there. Right. The idea that it's no, they're concerned about Trump now. I'm like, no. The big conversation everyone's having is Biden keeps having episodes. And I'll just pause here, too. Biden's back hurt. He was looking for a chair. He was straightening his back out. Not only have we had accusations that he's crapped his pants before, but he can't speak properly. There's been numerous occasions where he's wandered off in the wrong direction. In the past 2 weeks alone, I think we've had 2 or 3 videos of him going off the wrong direction on a stage or at the G7 wandering in the wrong direction. You add all those things in, the solution with the least amount of assumptions is the bumbling old dotard crapped his pants. Again, I'm not saying I know for sure. I'm just saying it is an absurdity to me to make an excuse when, and I'll put it this way. I ask ChatGPT, because we love ChatGPT, and I say, did Joe Biden crap his pants? He said, no, that's offensive and it's speculative. I then say, is it reasonable to conclude that Joe Biden, who's been rumored to have crapped his pants, who was over the age of 80 and that crapped his pants, and said, no, you can't assume that. I then removed Joe Biden from it and said, is it reasonable to assume that an 81-year-old man who's standing at a ceremony, who bends down a couple times and then grimaces and stands back up, crapped his pants? Yes, absolutely reasonable to assume that. When you add Joe Biden to it, everyone rushes to the defense of, no, this is not happening. This is not happening. But if you make it any old man, people say, yeah, probably.
I didn't hear the poop and I didn't see it coming out, so I can't make the assumption. I know this is a dark rabbit hole that we don't need. That assumption, don't make assumptions.
And that is not how we operate. We do not from here operate under the guise of it is a definitive fact that he did do it. It's simply, when we know the probabilities and percentages, we can make better decisions moving forward. And what we have here is, and again, to move on from the poop jokes, because I get it's like a funny story, is we have a man who is clearly so physically incapable that voters have become nervous about it, and it's become the top issue in the United States.
Part of what I was going to bring up is, like, do you think this is part of people in the deep state that are like top level authorization at the deep state are kind of like, good. Now people can see how useless a single man as your leader is. Now we'll take over by like our oligarchy will take over because you can't rely on one guy. If the guy falls apart, you're screwed.
They want the president to be like the king, a figurehead with no real power, and that's what they got in Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And as long as he's only a point or two down, I'm not sure they will replace him. I think there are some Democrats that would like to do that. But if they think he can beat Trump,
not only that, but also one of the things going against him is I feel like it's likely that the polls are going to do the same thing that they did in 2016 and again in 2020, where the polls didn't show that Donald Trump was doing anything. They look really, really bad. Right. He's got the best polls that he's had so far now, right? But today is the best polls that he's ever had. I don't think that they're going to make any change because I don't think they're going to believe any polls that say Donald Trump's going to win.
Well, the debate's now in front of the first.
It's hubris,
right? They moved the debate up.
They moved it up?
I thought isn't there some sort of
isn't it?
interaction in front of the DNC primary?
yeah, their first debate is on the 27th.
I think that's what will be the test essentially. And I think if there's any move to get rid of them, it'll be that.
So let's talk about this. There are many people speculating that Democrats are using the debate. The reason why they've decided, yes, we will have a debate with Donald Trump, is so that they can force Biden out. His performance will be so bad or something will happen that they'll have no choice but do it. Because right now, Biden's not backing out. He doesn't want to leave. Jill doesn't want to leave. And so they need a major moment in front of the nation to say Biden can't do this.
Or he'll prove he can do it. I mean, I think it's genuine. I think it's okay to model some Democrats as like genuinely undecided, who they care more that a Democrat wins than who. Can Biden do it or not? I could imagine being genuinely uncertain about that and saying, well, I want to test him and let's see if he can do it. You know, if I imagine being a Democrat, which is hard to do, but, you know, that's...
There's also just a question of if expectations are so low, can he, just by not crapping his pants, win the debate? It's like Trump is mean and Biden didn't crap his pants that night. Therefore, this was a big win. The State of the Union address was kind of received in that way.
Yeah. I've believed for a while now that they would swap out Joe Biden. And the only reason they would not, in my opinion, is that they want him to lose or they expect him to lose and their plans are elsewhere.
I do think there's more comfort with Trump this time around than there was in the past. I don't think that the reaction is the same. And I think Trump kind of, if anything, didn't do some of the things that people would have been worried about him doing. And so... Yeah.
Orrin McIntyre had a great tweet. He said, Lord, give me the Trump that leftists have crafted in their delusional mind.
Please, that's what I want.
Trump's not doing any of that stuff. Right. He's going to get in. It's going to be slightly above milquetoast in a lot of ways. We'll be satisfied with some of the stuff he does. It'll be better than anything else we could get from any of the other candidates. And a lot of people are going to be disappointed. I think our fingers are crossed for a good AG, a good deputy attorney general, a good cleaning out of the bureaucratic entrenchment. I think we're going to get 10% of what we're hoping for and go, well, you know.
His strength is geopolitical negotiation, Trump's is, and I think he would easily soothe tensions with the Russians and the Chinese. It sounds like he wants the Israelis to go stomp out Hamas, whatever that means exactly.
Absolutely.
So, like, that means maybe funding that war until the ideology no longer exists. I don't know. Like, Hamas is a political ideology.
No, Hamas is made of people. And
there are
get
people,
those people and you kill them.
It's like saying communism is
not
people.
No. Hamas is an organization.
Yeah.
There's an ideology that's anti-Zionism. That's one thing. But the Hamas is made up of people.
But people come and go into that organization.
But it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
It doesn't matter because if you join Hamas, you are Hamas.
Yeah, but if you don't join Hamas until in 20 days, then it mattered. And what you did could cause more people to join Hamas, killing their fathers and their friends.
It does. Listen, whatever your opinion is, I'm telling you how the Israelis are going to look at it. The Israelis look and they say, these people are members of Hamas, just like these people are members of the mafia.
So what if they just say, I'm no longer a member of Hamas. We have a new organization with a different name that does the exact same thing.
Come out with your hands up. That's it.
But I mean, if you're saying it only matters if you identify with the group.
Ian, where's ISIS?
Where? It's a concept. I mean, I don't know where they're
ISIS
based.
Was an organization.
No, ISIS is a group.
Yeah, but where are they? They
crushed.
They be your neighbor's home. They might be in a cave somewhere.
Their resources are gone. Their control structures are gone. Their fortifications have been wiped out. That's the same. They're gone.
The
I mean, you tend to
ideology.
turn
Con-
To be honest,
many
everything I
countries
know
have been eviscerated.
about ISIS was told to me by the media. I have no idea who they were, where
All
they
you
were.
have to, dude, you can read Dabiq. They have a whole, they had a whole, magazine they were putting out the entire time. There's this one, it's called Dabiq. There's this one issue that is titled Why, or there's an article they wrote that's called Why We Hate You and Why We Fight You. And they list off all the reasons why they hate the West. There is all this idea that Hamas and that there is no violent fundamentalist ideology, that's wrong.
Ian.
And they not only is it wrong, they literally tell you. So what was going on in the early part of the teens was like Barack Obama was like, oh, these people are just actually they're it's about economics and blah blah blah. It's like, no, they really effing believe it. You listen to Sam Harris, and not that I'm a big Sam Harris fan, but he goes through the whole the article in Dabiq talking about what they want. Essentially, they think of themselves as like Jedi. Like they get to go and be holy warriors. They can slaughter people and feel good about it. Because God said, this is real. This isn't make-believe. It's not from the media. This is from them. This is from ISIS themselves.
You're talking about ISIS?
You can watch
ISIS,
You
yeah.
can find their propaganda videos, and
Absolutely.
they're actually share some similarities with like U.S. Army recruitment videos. There's some really interesting propaganda pieces. They're decent production value, and they join the cause.
That was one of the things that Sam Harris was saying. It was a really, really bad thing because Dabiq had such good copy editing. The copy editing was better than I think the New York Times. There was a typo in the New York Times talking about Dabiq, but if you look at the actual article written in Dabiq, there was no typos. Like that means that's a level of sophistication.
Even the word uncensored.
Pardon me?
Even the word uncensored was typed.
That was my typo on the front page of the website.
Fair enough, yeah. But the point is, these are not backwards people that don't understand what they believe. They're fully aware of what they believe, and they actually believe it. The idea that it's just economics and blah blah blah, that's horseshit. That's liberals saying that they don't want to believe what the actual terrorists are telling them.
Is the Mujahideen still a fighting force anywhere, or has it become a generic term now?
I think it's generic.
I mean, I actually think like a lot of them are like these sort of like they're the autism spectrum people of the Middle East. Yeah, like they take their beliefs really seriously. A lot of people don't, but a lot like terrorists, they are.
And this speaks to a problem on the left, which is the whole you can just cogs. That is factually wrong. You cannot do that. Individual people matter. The attributes and the traits that make you up, that make up Jeremy, that make up all of us, like these things are important, and they can't be just replaced. Like I can't just sit in Tim's seat and become Tim Pool. Tim Pool can monologue. Tim has knowledge and abilities that I don't have.
Let's do that. That's a really great example, right? If everyone in this room were to get arrested right now, and then some other
possibility too.
Absolutely. And then the show gets off the air, and then a week later, a handful of people no one's ever heard of show up and begin talking. Will it be Timcast IRL? No. Maybe it will succeed. Probably it won't, because the audience coalesces around a certain format that we have, a certain production structure, the way we communicate with guests, the way we time segments, the way we post segments later on. It would be something totally different, funded in a totally different way, likely would fail. Like the majority of enterprises and organizations fail. Very few succeed. If Hamas is obliterated, and we're not even talking in a context of war. Let's just say Israel decides to go in with plastic bullets and arrest each and every one, and then ships them off to a different prison all around the world. They have zero communication with each other. It has been dismantled without violence other than imprisonment. There is no reforming of that. Running an organization like Hamas requires personal connections for resources, and it requires strategic thinking and planning. Someone else might come around eventually, but to put it very simply, there are many organizations, there are many, piracy groups and countries that no longer exist and never will because they lost a war.
So I think that what Israel is really fighting against is terroristic threat, in whatever form it arrives. And right now it's in the formation of Hamas and their people. They've been terroristically threatening the Israelis, so they want to get rid of that. But there's ways to get rid of terroristic threats. And if you murder all of the people that are involved in the organizations, you may create more terroristic threat down the line because of all their children and cousins that you've pissed off.
So I have a question for you. Do you think the likelihood that Ireland attacks and begins pulling a free Palestine-style attack on the UK is imminent?
No.
But aren't the children of the Irish Republicans still angry? I mean, there was massacres from the British Empire. And what about the British and the French? Are we expecting anytime soon the British and the French to go back to war because they were warring for hundreds of years?
No, not right now.
But why not?
Because the liberal economic order took over all of it.
The liberal economic order was way, way, way after those conflicts had stopped.
Yes, I know, and that's
And
why
even
they
right
don't go
now,
to war anymore.
actually,
World War One, basically.
I gotta give a shout out.
Sovereignty. Sorry.
Oh, I gotta give a shout out to Star Trek: The Next Generation, because in the episode where Data asks Picard about terrorism, one of the examples he gives, and again, this is the early 90s, this is late 80s, early 90s when the show was made. Data says there have been examples where terrorism has worked, such as the Mexican independence from Spain or the Irish reunification of 2024. The funny thing about that is in the 90s, the writers were like, in their minds, the Troubles would have evolved into an actual unification of the Irish state. That was the prediction of the writers in the early 90s, that the Troubles would succeed. They didn't. What happened was the EU came around, and the weirdest thing happened. Ireland and Northern Ireland just became an open border through the Schengen zone in the European Union. And now there still is anger there. You know, when I was there several years ago in Belfast, there's like Gaelic writing on the wall. The peace wall is actually pretty weird. One side's Israel, one side's Palestine. No joke. But the likelihood, in my opinion, that we see Irish and British people reignite 800-year-old conflict because of the killing. People have long forgotten about it. They found prosperity. So the issue right now is if in Gaza, Hamas stopped firing rockets, things would slowly start to dramatically improve for them. I'm not saying Israel's right or wrong. I'm saying you choose war, the winner gets it. I will cite Ulysses S. Grant, who wrote an amazing letter after the Civil War. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, "It is the right of anyone to challenge their government. If you lose, you will be ruled over by your betters, by those who have conquered you. If Gaza chooses war, they get war, and they can't win that war. The end result is going to be the desolation or just the destruction of what's left of Palestine."
Yeah, I don't think this excuses some of the things that happens to people in Gaza, but I think a lot of people can underestimate the sort of quality or caliber of person and the attitudes that they have there. This is a population of people that are pretty morally backwards from our standards, and also just kind of dumb and violent by our standards. Again, on average, you can probably find exceptions, but you know, there's a reason you're not seeing a bunch of faces and people that represent Western values leading the cause for Gaza, because they mostly don't exist. Or they would be there at the faces and leaders. They want something that Americans, the vast majority of Americans, would not want. They're not good guys. That doesn't justify what's happening to them necessarily either. But the idea that Gaza is full of good people, I think, is just not a true claim.
And I think it says something, too, that the majority of people in the United States who overwhelmingly are pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, let's say pro-Hamas specifically, are not particularly smart. And then you have...
generally very anti-Western.
Absolutely. They don't really have a logic to their systems or what they understand. Even the people on the right who are critical of Israel and are smart and knowledgeable about it, it's more of a, yeah, fine, whatever, we shouldn't be funding them. But the pro-Hamas faction are not very smart people.
Ian, people are tweeting. I tweeted about this earlier, and someone linked the actual article. Later on, you can go ahead and read it. It's called "Why We Fight You and Why We Hate You." It's by ISIS. It's someone was tweeting at you. So when you check out your Twitter link, you can read the article, and they go through exactly all the stuff that you hear the conservatives say. That a lot of people are like, oh, they don't really think that and stuff. It's all there. We hate you because you're not Islamic. We hate you because you have corrupted, blah, blah, blah. We hate you for this. And if you go through it, I think there's one mention of Israel, but the majority of the anger is not about Israel. Israel is a convenient excuse for a lot of people in the Middle East, but it's not that Israel is actually the driving factor.
It's just about colonization, imperial colonization in general.
No. Colonization is a Western concept, right?
No. People have colonized.
No.
Means you take people and take land and colonize.
The idea of colonization. So colonization is an actual thing that has like theory behind it and stuff like that. So you'd have to read like Franz Fanon wrote a book called The Wretched of the Earth, and that is talking about decolonization and the things that are required to decolonize. Colonization in the Middle East is not thought of in the same way that the West thinks of colonization. In the Middle East, they're extremely used to violence creating new countries. That is something that is has been all of history, and the people in the Middle East have a significantly longer outlook on history than us in the West. So the people in the Middle East don't think of it like colonization, like Western colonization. They think of it as we are being encroached upon by your Western sensibilities. So your LGBT stuff, your promiscuity, your
McDonald's. Corporations?
No, not those things.
Shockingly.
No, those things don't matter to them. Because it's just like they're like, oh, well, we can get burgers and stuff. The things that matter to them are the things that make their daughters want to rip off the hijab, right? The things that make their daughters want to go and be promiscuous and dance and blah 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 and make a TikTok shaking their butt. Those are the things, because those are what corrupt the actual society, as opposed to just corporate stuff. The ideas that you have are extremely Western centric, and fine. It's not that they're invalid, but your perspective is purely from the West, and it doesn't even acknowledge the perspective of the actual people in the Middle East, not the power brokers, but the average person in the Middle East and what they believe and how their culture's formed.
I had a friend when I was younger who was Arabic. His parents were immigrants. I don't remember exactly where from, but men weren't allowed in his house. Only the head of the house, brothers, no stranger men were allowed in the house, and the women had to stay in the house. They were very, very conservative.
Wow.
Muslim. Yep.
The
women wore hijab and all that stuff.
Eric Prince, who's the co-founder or founder of Blackwater, military mercenary group, he recently said that he thinks it's time that we start recolonizing. Do you guys think that he's far off? He says like some of these countries in Africa are so barbaric that they're just governed by just menace, so that we should take them over militarily and reinstitute.
Pick up the white man's burden. Read more Kipling.
I'm interested in your take on this. Would you go ahead and
Israel being one of those places?
We've certainly not proven very good at doing that in the places where we've tried recently, and certainly if we tried to do that in Africa, where we have less history and certainly a lot of domestic opposition to do that, I don't think it will work very well. But there is a degree to which that some of this isn't just about the ideas people have in their head, but what kind of territory that they control. And so you might not be able to eliminate Hamas-like sentiment, and you certainly won't be able to eliminate it as long as the Israel-Palestinian situation is what it is. But you can keep Hamas from necessarily governing Gaza. You can keep ISIS from having parts of Iraq and having parts of countries that they actually govern. Those are things you can militarily achieve. Changing people and changing the way they think and they believe, that's a very difficult thing to do, certainly not a military thing to do.
There are two kinds of colonization that we should talk about. The first is what everyone assumes today, which would be militaristic conquest. The U.S. military and a group of people go and take control of a country and fight off the barbaric hordes that are ruling over the land. No. The other form of colonization is literally just people move places. China is doing that right now. China is engaged in probably the most expansive colonization effort humanity has ever undertaken. And what are they doing? Chinese nationals are moving to different countries. That's it. And eventually they form massive voting blocks, massive economic blocks, and this results in them taking over. So let's go back in time to the Pilgrims who landed at good old Plymouth Rock. What's the story there? Well, the story back then was that they were starving and cold. The Native Americans came and they gave them turkey and stuffing and corn and popcorn and all that stuff. Purple corn, and they popped it, and everybody was happy and lived in harmony forever until the Pilgrims started breeding, expanding rapidly, took over more and more space. And what happens then is the Native Americans are getting pushed out because they can't compete technologically and culturally and population-wise. Technologically advanced populations. The intention of the colonists wasn't to come here and massacre Native Americans. What happens was they said, I'm coming here to find a place to live because we're running out of land over there and my government's become oppressive, whatever the reason may have been. There were a variety of reasons. They come here. They're in a barren area and initially very cooperative with many of the Native Americans. Not in the Caribbean, different story, different colonizers, different form of colonization. You had a lot of this. The conquistadors are looking for treasures and bounty to bring back to the crown and things like this. But you had settlers who came and it was like, we're going to build houses and live here. Once it started expanding rapidly, then it's, hey, I need that land. I got kids. And then they're like, but this doesn't matter. Now we fight. And then this becomes war and conquest. What we're likely going to see with China's expansion and colonization is, and they're already doing this everywhere, is in the future, you will see various governments completely overtaken by Chinese influence simply because Chinese people have moved there and have that influence. Maybe in 300 years, you have like in Africa, a country that is 73% ethnic, Chinese or whatever, and they declare independence or something, and they're isolated from the Chinese Communist Party. Who knows?
Yeah, because they could come to the U.S. and then just become co-opted by U.S. culture. If our culture is strong enough, that's like the culture war. That's like civilization,
that's
cultural
fake. It doesn't happen.
Victory.
It doesn't happen.
Well, like people get swayed in one direction or another every day of their lives, and you can become more into 2A, gun rights, freedom of speech, or you can become more into like oligarchic ownership of humans as cattle. Like it could be one or the other, depends on who you're surrounded by, what the media is telling you when you turn on the TV, what the music says.
We'll jump back to the various news subjects instead of going off in the wide foreign policy stuff, because we do have some stories I want to talk about. This is from Tenet Media. Nick Fuentes and Jake Shields walk into Turning Point's People's Convention and are almost immediately removed by security. So I don't know the reason. I don't think they know the reason. The guy who walks up to Fuentes and Shields says he knows why he's banned from here, and Nick then responds, because of Israel. And I think this is I think this is a big problem for Turning Point in not. I don't know if they've issued a formal statement or what, but I do think there should be a reason why Nick Fuentes and Jake Shields, I believe primarily Nick Fuentes, was removed from their conference. This video, it's just from today, earlier at the Turning Point. I think it was in Detroit. They're doing a great event. Happy to see it. But for what reason was Nick turned away?
Isn't he like a leftist socialist kind of guy? Nick?
Fuentes?
Yeah.
National socialist.
Yeah, he's like a socialist, isn't he?
He's a national socialist.
Is he a socialist? I don't know.
That's like a conference for like right-wing people. So it makes sense.
If you listen to
they have leftist journalists that are allowed in there. And if they don't want Nick there, that's absolutely fine. But if they don't give a reason, then Nick decides what the reason is. And Nick's decided the reason was his criticism of Israel.
Well, that's Nick's reason for everything. He stubs his toe. He's like, Israel did.
And great. And maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But Turning Point should say, here's the reason why we don't allow Nick Fuentes in. And maybe they did. I don't know. I just didn't see it.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that he does believe in like a big, strong central government. So he may be conservative, but it's a conservative government with big, strong. So it's not like
if his
typical.
people wanted to win, he would do it. Tim said, you do type 2 colonization. You go, you take your people, you take over a place. That's what Free Staters do in New Hampshire. We've moved in. You take over. You colonize it. If Christians want a nation, they should take over their best state. They should target it. They should all move there, and they should enact their government.
Well, a lot of people have pointed out Iceland is an overwhelmingly white country with eugenics policy. And so...
And rare earth minerals, I think.
Yeah.
Geothermal
And the geothermals actually increase their standard of living dramatically. And so there have been white nationalists who have proposed people need to... Their proposal is that if you're a white nationalist, keep it to yourself, emigrate to Iceland however you can, bring as many people as you can, and take over the small nation. And here's the reality. They don't want to do that. Just like socialists, they're like, nah, I want your stuff.
Exactly.
I don't want to have to go and make my own thing. I want your thing.
There's
like, okay, well, dude.
And I think that's a big problem with all this stuff is it's very difficult to have a Fuentes-like narrative that doesn't also involve everyone on your side being a retard. Like your conspiracy theory is that everyone on my side is constantly tricked, and it's not possible for them to not get tricked. Like, I just don't get it.
It has to be.
Like I'm very mad that I can't do math. Like their complaints are just all involve them being dumb. So it's like you want to build a society where it's only for dumb people.
But like you're saying the argument that they're having is that Israel has outsmarted them at every step of the way.
I mean, the Jews are so smart that I can't even convince my fellow white Christians who still make up the predominant portion of America to just not get tricked by Jews. Christians are his implicit in his theory is that Christians are too dumb to not get tricked by Jews. Therefore, Jews can't be near Christians.
That's literally what he's saying. That's right. They're like,
sure. If that is what he believes.
Because it starts as a cheat code because, they believe that white people are a whole lot smarter than non-white people. That's what they believe ideologically.
Well, not necessarily. They actually just believe in racial, heavy correlation between race and IQ, and they do believe that there are some non-whites that are smarter than.
Yes, on an individual basis, but not on a group basis.
No, they actually will outright say Asians are smarter than them.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair, but they won't say that about blacks, or they won't say that about Hispanics.
Right.
Well, because they're not.
So how do you then explain why you are politically losing to people who you regard as inferior? Jews are who you then bring in as the explanation.
Real quick, this is why I refer to Fuentes and them as it's a form of wokeness that they're concerned about Jewish privilege.
Right.
The arguments that they make about Israel, You can take all of the arguments they make about Jews and replace the word Jew with white person, and you get the woke the woke ideology.
He sounds like Malma talking about the Boer in South Africa. Is actually how you seriously like they sound. If you listen to some of those South African people talking about like why are the Boer so good at running the power plants, they sound exactly like Nick Fuentes complaining about journalists.
The joke I used to make is take any one of these arguments and replace. You have Jews, you have white people, you have the 1%, you have the bankers. You can figure out which faction you belong to by ascribing all of the conspiracy theories to a select group of people, because that's what everybody does. You had, during Occupy Wall Street, the 1%. Now, the 1%, it's the rich people that start all the wars. It's the rich people that are stealing our wealth. They're rich people, a very generic, vague thing to say. Then you get the anti-Semitic groups that are saying, like, it's the Jews that run all the banks. It's the Jews that start all the wars. And then you can take that. Then it's the white people. Now all of a sudden, then it's the cis heteronormative white males. Whatever group you hate, you assign to whatever bad thing is happening, and there's your conspiracy theory.
Well, the most appealing political narrative is one that justifies me hurting other people and taking their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. This is what every political narrative is selling some justification that we need to help these people, hurt these other people, and so who helps and who gets hurt, and so this is an appealing political narrative. To go and take stuff from wealthy people or people who have it's so appealing. We want these theories to be true. Of course, it's appealing to that billionaires are all evil. The idea that billionaires are better than the average person and mostly earn it through merit, that's not a comfortable fact. I want to believe that they cheated me somehow. I want to believe that they got one over on me, and therefore I can go and take their things. It's much more appealing. All of my psychology is primed to want to believe that.
And this is the narrative of so many revolutions. So many genocides, blaming a group for all of your problems.
Yeah. Which is why, as a libertarian, I believe that the government is the fault of all of their problems and we need to take the government stuff. So I want to be clear, this is a good strategy. It works, and I am using it.
The government stuff is your stuff.
Well, right. I mean, think about it. If the government owns an incredible amount of land, we should take it and distribute it to the people, right? The government is taking an incredible amount of money. We got to take. They're controlling all this wealth and all this economy. We got to take it back.
I got an idea.
Let's take it from them.
Let me. I want to ask what you think. How about all of the land that is controlled by the federal government in the West Coast and the Rockies? Like, how they have just control over all of it. What if we divide up 40 acres each and a mule and pay the reparations to the descendants of slaves through seizing federally held lands and distributing it to private individuals?
Sure, we all, what you expect would happen, would happen. When lottery winners win $1 million, where are they 10 years later?
Well, that's changed, actually.
People who don't have anything generally don't have anything as a result of their choices. If you give them a bunch of things, they'll just end up with nothing again.
But yes, but I don't know if I care, because I'm like...
Sure.
We've had this argument about...
Oh, yeah, shut them up. Sure, yeah. But they wouldn't shut up. They just ask for more. So
I don't care if they ask for more. Or taking the land from the government and stripping the power from the land they've seized. So, we've had a lot of arguments about reparations. It's a bad idea. I certainly think the general idea that they proposed, like, how about scholarships? How about community centers? How about tax? And I'm like, dude, growing up in racially segregated areas... I tell you how bad it will be. It will be nightmarish if you implement direct reparations policy that either is cash supplemental, or community specific in cities. That being said, if the reparations plan was, we're going to seize all of the Bureau of Land Management's land and then distribute it among private citizens who are descendants of slaves, that's just taking away from the government, and I don't care what happens after the fact.
Do they get the land, or do they get the value of the land?
The land. The land is... The federal government has seized effectively a bunch of land in the United States. They just declared ownership under the Bureau of Land Management. And I'm like, nah, how about this? And we had one guy on the Culture War who was like a woke lefty guy. And I was like, perhaps here's the agreement, the compromise. The government has basically seized this land from the people. We don't really have an effective means of just restoring that to private ownership. But if we play the reparations angle, we get a 50-50. It does kind of suck that we have this race-based payout system, but it is just seizing the land back from the federal government into the hands of private citizens, which in the end can find its way into the market and then find its value. I don't know. I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, but this idea that if you just give people assets, that they won't be poor again. I mean,
I'm not saying that.
Sure.
I literally don't.
Okay,
they can go live in the mountain with the mule and then run out of food and go back to the city for all I care. But the government has lost control of the land they seized.
Gotcha.
So it's like whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I get it. I'm with you now.
And what'll happen? But you know what'll happen? Yeah. They will go to someone and they'll say, you know what? We told you all to hundreds of years ago, told your ancestors that there would be 40 acres and a mule, you are getting it. And then what do? They'll sell it. So all that would really happen is land would open up for sale at a competitive market rate because there would be so much of it. It actually wouldn't be too expensive. And then you'd see the private market come in and say, we will now buy this from all of you. I'm not saying that it'll be good in terms of what happens to the people who sell the land after the fact. It just strips the asset away from the federal government and puts it in the private market.
It probably would help someone. It may not help the actual initial beneficiaries, the initial recipients, but the process of selling all that land might actually help someone.
It'll help BlackRock.
You could just sell the land directly though, and like use that to pay down the debt, or use
That would be nice.
Pay down the debt.
Well, all right. Fine.
Jeez, that's crazy talk.
Do something. I don't know.
No,
I'm sorry.
I know.
I didn't mean
I'm
to bring
not-
prudence. I'm sorry. There's no place for prudence in America.
I'm not saying it's the absolute solution. I was just like, as an idea that was presented, it's like, would you weigh the wokeness of the race-based policy versus the stripping the government of resources? It's like
libertarians are the most oppressed class in America is something I say a lot, because we're the ones who actually view the government as illegitimate. You guys view it as legitimate, so you deserve it. We don't deserve it. So we, I think, are the ones who really deserve the reparations. I think if we can get lumped in with the blacks, I'm in. Okay, libertarians and blacks get reparations, and then this is a deal. I'll cut a deal with you right now.
my attitude is just like, if you strip 100, 200, 400 billion dollars from the federal government in their land holdings and deliver it to the private market to be utilized in some way, I'm kind of like, I got a high threshold for what I would be willing to accept in that. Like, I don't see a detriment to myself where I am, the work I'm doing, or anybody else by giving, mostly barren Rocky Mountain territories to various people to figure out what they want to do with.
Oh, we combine this with Vivek's plan for firing administrators. So all of the administrators, the 2/3 that get fired, they get the federal land as like their severance package.
Well, actually, okay. My idea was, instead of firing everybody, you just relocate the entirety of the FBI to like the Rockies, just in the mountains somewhere, and just we'll invest in building a mountainside hovel, and that's where you work from now on. And they're going to be like, we quit. It's like,
Their office
oh
is
no.
a cave.
That's right.
At the bottom of some mountain.
Like, we're quitting. We don't want to work here anymore. Oh no, don't quit. Oh, no, I guess they're gone. There you go. That's how you do it. Because the argument was it's really difficult to fire federal bureaucrats and employees. And it's like, well, come on, anybody who knows anything about running a company, you don't just fire them. You just make a job that nobody wants to work.
That they'll quietly quit.
Yeah, there you go. I first said put them in Alaska, because then what we have is federal investment into building a city in the middle of Alaska. But then the Alaskans got mad and they were like, you're going to ruin our state. And I'm like, oh, well, that's true.
A question, kind of a wider question based on what we were talking about Nick Fuentes earlier. Like, do you guys think that there's ever a situation where you can blame a group of people and they really are that group of people, whether it's a class of people, I don't know how you would group these people together. A race of people, a language-speaking group
the answer,
of people,
the answer
a
is
family, a government.
Yes. The answer is yes, but it's small scale, not large scale. Like, I don't think it's fair to blame America for what our oligarchic military-industrial complex machine is doing against our wishes that we desperately fight every day. You can pass some of the blame to some of these people who are passively voting and supporting, corruption. But I would say the active political class in the United States, left or right, are very much opposed to all of this war and conquest. And then they say, America's doing this, America's doing that. It's like, hey, guys, the people who follow politics back home in the United States are opposed to all of that. We don't want it. And then there's a warmonger class that just operates off of special interest. That being said, if there was a group of 6 people that called themselves the Cabal and they were ultra wealthy and they were enacting a plan to like rob a bank, you can blame the group for the robbing of that bank.
Yeah, it must be historically that is the case, that it has happened where like that family is the root of all of our problems collectively. Let's go take out that family. And then they did, and the solution was oriented. And then after the removal of the threat, whether it was external governance, a family, a religious sect, a cultural sect, I mean, it's sad and terrifying to think that you would target a race of people and that would be the end of your problem.
Like, a race doesn't make sense. Ethnic groups don't make sense.
On its head, it doesn't make sense.
Well, but when we say groups, we don't mean a group of 6 people, right? But we mean...
That's why I'm getting into the semantics of it. Like, the argument of a generic group, you can only blame a group when you're talking about like an ideological faction. So the answer is yes. If there's a group of 100 people that have formed a faction called like Antifa, Yes, you can blame Antifa. They operate in cells. They support each other. There's not that many of them. There's several thousand. They share an ideology. They share tactics. They communicate with each other. They fund each other, and they engage in violence. So if a group of people in black bloc show up and start smashing things, I say it's fair to blame Antifa, but that's an ideological faction.
It's also individual people. It's not like you're blaming the grandchildren of Antifa members or the great-grandchildren of them for the windows that were smashed before they were even born. So that's what happens with a lot of when you do it over religion, race, ethnicity. You're often blaming people who weren't even alive whenever the original sin was committed.
So I think, as someone who talks about groups sometimes, I think the question is how you're doing it and what you mean by it. Like because there are 8 billion people in the world. You're going to have to be able to categorize them in some way. So even statements like men are stronger than women is obviously a group-based statement. That statement is generally not heard as all men are stronger than all women. It's a statement about a general statistical truth. And so when do you want to cut off the ability to make claims like that? And so to me, I think it is okay to make group-based statements that are true the vast majority of time or true in general, or to be able to talk about averages, if you're reading these group-based statements as on average, rather than all. When we talk about groups, do you mean on average or all? And this is unclear when we talk about groups. But if you're going to talk about groups, you need to make sure that you're saying, I'm saying this as an average thing, as something that's true in general, not something that's always true. And that's where group-based thinking gets dangerous, is when you say it's always true. So I'll give you, I'm Jewish. There's a lot of talk about, I'm half Jewish anyway. There's a lot of talking about Jewish responsibility for various things. I have no problem acknowledging that Jews are more progressive on average, right, than other groups of people. And so therefore, if an area is more disproportionately Jewish on average, it's likely to be more progressive. If you're going to say, well, therefore, just because Jews are more progressive on average, no Jews can be in my conservative coalition, or no Jews can, that's where, and so it's fine to make the statement, Jews are more progressive, if you're saying on average. If you're using that to say, and therefore I can't work with Jews, that's the problem. And so that's how do you mean your group statements is very important.
And there's the what are you going to do about it question.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're just making a factual observation about something that might be true on average, men are stronger than women, for example. Okay, men are stronger than women, therefore to make women safe, we need to lock all men in cages. Well, that's kind of a problem, right? And so what you're going to do about it matters a lot too.
It's important when you make claims about groups that people know you're talking about averages. It's like an annoying thing to have to add on to it. On average, when I say that they're taller than the other group, on average, but because as soon as you say they are taller than them, you're assuming it assumes all.
It's an IQ test. And I can't remember who brought this up. It might have been Michael Malice or whatever.
Fortune post.
If I have to, if you respond to my statement, when I say men are stronger than women, if you respond with not all, I immediately know I'm talking to a moron.
Yep.
There's actually a really funny bell curve meme. You know the bell curve meme where there's a really dumb guy, the average guy, and then the smart guy? The meme was something like the dumb guy and the smart guy both talk in as simple terms as possible, and the midwit and the average guy try to sound as intelligent as possible.
So
it's
the midwit's well, not all, you mean on average is the midwit, but the dumb guy's yeah, they are all taller, stronger than the others.
Not all, but
yeah, they are stronger than the others.
The dumb guy goes, men are stronger than women. And the smart guy goes, this is correct, men are stronger than women.
And the smart guy's picturing...
Goes, actually, on average, is around a 20% increase. It's nobody needs that context.
Well, the idiots need it.
No, they don't.
They think when they hear men are stronger than women, they think all men are stronger than all women.
You're pulling a midwit on me.
No, that's what the idiot thinks. That's why the midwit says it, is so just for the idiots listening.
No.
Yeah, he's trying to translate.
That's not the point I'm making.
I think it is.
No. The point is...
Let me tell you what you're thinking, Tim.
Lower IQ people can speak in simple terms to get the gist of it. It's communicating through memes. The smart people know you don't need to elaborate what is common sense. The midwits try to over-explain because they think they're smarter than everybody.
Well, I think they think they're smarter than the idiots. And maybe they think they're smarter than the smart people, too. Because if Jeremy says men are stronger than women, and then some idiot, low IQ, is yeah, and pictures all men now stronger than all women, then the midwit comes in and is well, actually, he's not being very specific. It's on average. The smart guy already knew what he was saying.
Ian's proving my point.
The dumb guy misinterpreted what the smart guy was saying.
Ian, I think you've literally just proved my point.
So I think it's actually kind of a...
Well, not all midwits. I just want to point out that not all midwits make a mistake.
That's a good hashtag, not all midwits.
I would rather go towards the trend that groups, like when we talk about groups, that on average is the default context. I think it's easier because otherwise it's really hard to use group-based labels. And so I actually think we've gotten too defensive. We've gotten so concerned about racism. We've gotten so concerned about bigotry that we're now afraid to make statements that are true because we're so worried about these claims being meant as all and going in these places that are, we do have dark aspects of human history. So I'm not saying there's no reason to be concerned, but if we're stopping our ability to talk about truths, if we can't talk about group differences, and then we go, well, gosh, there sure does seem to be some racism in police violence, or there sure does seem to be some racism in who's getting certain jobs, or there seems to be sexism in who becomes a Fortune 500 CEO, and we can't explain why because we've tabooed all discussion of group differences, like this is a real problem. So there have been negative outcomes with good intentions. We've maybe tabooed some group-based discussion, but it's had some really negative outcomes because we can't explain important truths about the world.
Yeah, I think what they call race realism. I love the idea that you would just be genetically accurate. All you're doing is taking someone, talking about their genetics, and then making accurate claims about that. Not about grouping them in with other people with similar genetic.
What do you mean?
Like some genetics lead to certain height differentials, perhaps, and that derives from your ancestry, which maybe came from one area of the world where they needed to be taller to get along, stuff like that. And so you could say like that person's bone structure has this quality, or that tends to have.
Talking about phrenology.
That might be part of it.
There's a meme where it shows two skeletons in an X-ray kissing, and then some leftist captioned like, "This is so beautiful because right now you can't tell if it's a man or a woman or a black person or a white person," and then someone responded with, "Actually, we can. Based on the mandibular blah, 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 and the forehead pronunciation, this appears to be a person from this region, and it's a male and a female." And I think the conclusion was, based off the skull alone, they could tell it was a white man and an Asian woman.
So like in video games, if you have like one race, is like the big rock man and he can live in fire, you put him in the fire room because he can survive in that environment. So in reality, if you've got a white dude and a black dude and an Asian dude, what environments do they thrive in on average?
None of them will live in a fire room.
None of them have to live in a fire room. There's no big rock men in this reality. But like that conversation is okay to have without a racist bone in your body, like just genetic observations. How are we different? Let's talk about it.
You understand that most of the time, accusations of racism are less about what you're saying and more about a vector of attack. Right? Nowadays, most of the time when people accuse someone of racism or whatever, it's not that they have a problem with talking about racial differences or whatever, because you can see it when if it's a person that's a progressive, you can see that progressives are completely comfortable with racism because they're racist against white people, right? So it's not that the problem is racism. It's that calling someone racist is a vector of attack. There are always going to be people that are going to be racist and have racist ideas or racially biased ideas. And you can have those without having malice towards the groups you're talking about. But when people are going to accuse you of racism because you're saying things, it's not that they have a problem with what you say so much as they want to use that as a vector of attack to shut you down.
That anecdotally functions with what my experience is. Yeah,
I think the issue with race realists is that they take it too far. They make assumptions about individuals based on it's not necessarily that
biological essentialism.
They believe that race is the most pressing factor in an individual's development, and I think genetics certainly plays a role in development, but nature and nurture probably have some kind of back and forth depending on the individual. So I remember in Berkeley arguing with race realists, and their argument was like the race of the person is indicative of their genetics, and their genetics determine everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's not true. If you take a South Korean child, and on average South Koreans have higher IQs, and you leave him in the woods and only occasionally drop off just raw food for him to eat, no education, no access to math, by the age of 15, he will be completely incapable of learning language. We've seen this already. It doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your genetics. With a lack of neural development, muscular development, this person as an adult will not be able to develop those things later on. So, when these people argue about the race and the IQ, and I'm like, environmental factors can override almost all of that. And that's the issue with making presumptions about race and genetics.
Negatively, but not positively. it's easy to come up with negative interventions, as you say, and race is clearly not deterministic. But if there were positive interventions that could cause racial outcomes in the United States to be equivalent, this is $1 billion industry that people have been looking for 50 years or 80 years or 100
elaborate
years.
an example.
We know that the whatever you want to estimate the mean IQ difference between various races or ethnicities to be, it's clearly there. It's in the SAT data, it's in the GRE data, it's in every standardized test data that's ever been taken. It's in every IQ test data. It replicates itself in every country. It's like one of the most well-replicated facts.
So the problem from there is they then say, Harvard, for instance, we're going to now do admittance based on race. And the reason why that's so extremely racist is that you'll end up with an Asian kid from the Bronx or something, low-income family, and they're going to say, you look too much like those people, so you can't go to Harvard now. A chance for someone who is poor, of an individual circumstance, to move up in their life. I'm not saying you should go to Harvard, to be honest, but the general idea is there, based on group race policies. This is what happens. The left looks at the schools and says, there's too many Asians, too many whites, not enough blacks, not enough Latinos. Start kicking Asian people out. And I'm like, why is, little Jimmy from the Bronx being denied access to higher education based on his race? It doesn't solve the process of the problem of racism. It is literally them exacerbating racism, because their argument is they don't like the fact that too many Asians score well on tests and get into these schools. I don't care who gets in the schools. Take the test, get in the school, do whatever you want. I don't think it's racist to have an outcome where you have predominantly Asian and white people.
And it creates more racism. Like you guys have been covering this story out of UCLA with all this malpractice around how people have been admitted. You're going to have outcomes. You're not going to have situations where people have been gaming things to let people that are underqualified and not as able in on the basis of their race. And what are you supposed to do on the other side of that? How do those people end up getting if you don't want racism, you need strict meritocratic tests. If you're creating different standards for different races, then the rational thing for people on the other side of that is to say, oh, you're a race that got preferential bonuses to get into college. Well, then I can't judge your college degree as an employer as equally worthy. I have to now you can of course go. I'm not saying you discredit them, go deeper, assess them more seriously. But if a college is clearly lowering its standards on the basis of race, then the degree can't be, worth the same.
It does that, and it also creates resentment among the people who don't get in because they're held to a different standard.
Yeah. And it creates, actually, because I saw some in my school, you also have people who are struggling, and it also can create racial resentment on that axis. So you have, if it ends up being that you are boosting races to get into college, and then they get into the college and they're in the bottom 20% of whereas they could have been in the middle or at the top somewhere else
at a different college.
Yeah, and that this also, so that it's
setting them up for academic failure.
Yeah, the idea that people that getting into the wrong school makes it more likely that they're going to fail is obviously not a positive for for the people that are actually getting it.
Well, and then they see that they fail, and they're like, well, we better get rid of the grades, and what they were doing in UCLA, like letting people just through like medical school that couldn't pass tests, and they're giving them degrees.
It's the first I heard. What's the U.S.?
There's a big scandal. There's a guy on Twitter covering it, like Aaron Silberbot. He broke the story. These professors leaked all this internal data about the racial admission standards and the outcomes of the students. And the professors tried to have an internal investigation, and they could not get a promise from the school that there would not be a retaliation against any individuals who acted. So this whistleblower went to a journalist with all of the data, and it's pretty damning what UCLA has been doing, like letting basically unqualified people into the school in the first place, and then gaming the system to give them, to basically be like either giving them degrees or letting them through, just completely unqualified, just so that they could have racial equality in students. It's a crazy.
They used to do it with athletes.
Either
it was kind of like just accepted. They would push athletes through the curriculum just because they needed a powerhouse front lineman, offensive lineman.
They're going to play ball. They're not going to be a medical student.
I want to shift to this story, which is only tangentially related. The Post-Millennial FAA investigates counterfeit titanium used in Boeing Airbus jets report. So we had all these problems with Boeing, but now it's Boeing and Airbus, And I don't know how serious this is, but they say the FAA is investigating how counterfeit titanium has been used in some components on Boeing and Airbus jets. Concerns have been raised with the structural integrity of some of the aircraft as a result. This comes as whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm on faulty safety practices in Boeing manufacturing facilities and practices. The reason why I want to jump in this is because we're kind of talking about DEI and race stuff. And this is a component. What's happening in airlines with diversity hiring, what's happening in the medical field. Last week, when I was over at the poker tables, as you know I always am, there was an older guy who was like a retired airline worker who was complaining to some of the people at the table about how he's glad he's out of the industry because they've completely stopped the safety tests. Like he was basically saying like the barriers that were put in place to make sure these things are working have been slowly stripped away. And people who are not qualified are now in these positions. This is how you end up with fake titanium in jets, which may be not so structurally sound. And the fascinating thing is we know the diversity hiring, where the goal is to get a person based on race instead of merit. We know it's been happening, and it will result in problems, and these problems keep popping up.
This apparently, and I didn't read this from the Post-Millennial, I'm reading it from the artificial intelligence that answered my search query, says that the counterfeit titanium was purchased from a little-known Chinese company and was sold with falsified documents. Then used in parts that went into jets from both Boeing and Airbus, including landing gears, blades, and turbine discs.
This is actually, if I understand correctly, this is typical of China, right? Like obviously they'll go ahead and spoof or make their own versions of Apple products and they sell them all over China and stuff like that. So the idea that they counterfeit things, I mean, that's kind of standard operating procedure in China, you know?
I wonder if they sold them domestically to themselves or if this was like an external.
I bet they didn't. Well, actually, no, I take that back because I've heard their buildings fall down sometimes too. So I don't know.
Who was this little known Chinese company? Give me a name.
I don't know, but I probably can't pronounce it.
Whenever I ride on take these airplanes now, I'm like, oh dear God, what am I doing?
I feel like
why am I not flying Frontier?
I feel like that's the point, though. It does kind of seem strange that we had this big Green New Deal thing where they said people need to stop flying on planes, and then all of a sudden we get wave after wave of stories suggesting that the planes are gonna fall out of the sky.
You know what I do every time I buy a flight on Google? It gives you the CO2. I just buy the highest one.
Paying it forward.
Got to warm up New Hampshire a little bit.
That's right. I'm pro global warming because I hate the winter in New Hampshire.
Exactly.
If you can push winter back to starting at like the end of November and finishing by March 1, I'm in.
If India wants to complain that we're ruining their farming, I want a payment because this is good for America. Okay, you're asking. Global warming is good for America. It's going to improve. Arable farmable land in North America. This is good for us. So I think these countries who don't want it, they got to pay us.
Yeah, that is something that people don't think about. Like apparently, like the additional oxygen not oxygen, CO2, it does make plants grow better. Like if you have a higher CO2 level, it does make plants actually grow better.
Yeah, there's a great study out of MIT that compares the relative productivity changes of land under various global warming scenarios, and a bunch of places get better. There are clearly areas that get worse. Sure. So I'm not but there are clearly areas that get better. And so again, stopping global warming is a real cost because energy is an input to everything. So if we're doing it to help the places that are getting worse, I think the places that would have gotten better should deserve payments from the places that would have gotten worse. And this would be the equitable way to address the problem.
Opportunity cost. Right. Yeah, because Canada's set to become a blooming ecosystem,
right?
With
And Russia too. Like, why would you be aligned with this?
And Canada's got a lot of land.
Talk about a nation being cucked. I can't imagine being a Canadian and being against global warming. How pathetic.
Well, it's because you're gonna have a bunch of southern border migration. You'll have a border crisis in no time.
I've made the open statement that once Canada actually becomes full communist and they lock everything down, people on the way through, if they can get over the border into New Hampshire, I will give them a place to stay for the night, wash their clothes, but they can't stay at my house forever. They have to keep going. But you can sleep. You can get a good night's sleep, and I'll let you use the bathroom and wash and stuff like that.
I know a guy in New Hampshire who says he'll pick up any Canadian, no questions asked. So you get across the border, he'll pick you up, drop you. We need to get people out of that failing country.
Absolutely.
We need
before Trudeau gets them.
I'm not for some kind of migrants coming here, but if you're a pro-gun Canadian, get here.
Come on.
Anyway, get here anyway.
Come on down.
I will help you out. I will make sure that you have a safe place to go, and I will make sure that the Royal Mounted Canadian Police are not welcome on my property.
We need an underground railroad out of Canada.
Legally.
The Americans
come legally.
could not have broken away from the British Empire without the French, and now I think we owe it to the Canadians to break away from the British Empire.
No. They had their chance. We asked Quebec if they wanted to join. There were 14 colonies. It wasn't just 13. Quebec said no.
Yeah.
And it could have been the United States with Quebec, but they don't want to
do it.
I encourage the English-speaking Canadians to get through Montreal. You French-speaking Canadians, you can stay up there.
We almost took Montreal as well.
Also, as Western
War of
Europe
1812.
falls, some of those people could come over here too. Yeah, the better ones. Again, a lot of them we don't want. But a couple of Western Europeans, we'll take some of those. There's some good, let's take
Yeah,
them.
too many communists in the East.
Well, America's sucked all the good people out of Europe for like several centuries, right? So you kind of left,
countries,
you're
yeah.
left with all the And I'm for good. There are good migrants. They're good immigration come from anywhere. I do.
We
believe
brought
that.
all the smart minds here and then poisoned them with high fructose corn syrup. What?
Fluoride,
Oh my God, that's what we were doing.
plastics, fluoride, pesticides, atrazine, etc.
I think it's a good indictment of your country if the biggest failure is cheap, abundant calories.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. We have fat homeless people. Mm-hmm. That's wild.
I saw a
achievement.
chart that it's something like 60 or 70% of Americans now are overweight, like at least some kind, if they're not like obese.
The average.
And I think that's a big reason why people aren't having more kids. Nobody finds anybody attractive.
It's also hard to get it up if you're fat. All that blood flow circulation gets cut off, and that makes it challenging to just get it on in general. I heard. Yeah, keep that blood flow.
Studies say.
I heard.
Keep those your lower gut calisthenics active. Stay healthy. Stay stretched out.
So check this out. The average height, according to GPT, of an American male is 5'9", and the average weight is 197.9 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Let's do.
What's the BMI?
I'll
on
do
that?
women.
What's the average weight of the dad?
The average height of an American female is 5'4", and the average weight is 170
Oh, God.
pounds.
Oh my God!
That's adults. I assume this is adults.
This is one of those things where you
Ladies.
you end up in such bubbles, you're so out of touch.
Yep, just adults. Wow, dude. That's crazy.
I've been eating a lot of cholesterol.
170.
I'm pretty meticulous with my diet this last week. I had a bunch of cheese puffs. They're healthier cheesy puffs, but like a lot of them. And the cholesterol has caused me to gain a type of weight that I'm not used to gaining. It's like a type of fat that's like, ooh, my skin's getting thin. This gross fat. Like, I think it's a lot of cholesterol in people's diets. They got to cut back on. Do some healthy cholesterol.
Phil, I'll go first to give you safety. I weigh less than the average American woman. Do you? Are you also?
So I had a rough weekend this past weekend. I lost about 10 pounds because of a trip to the hospital. Normally I weigh around 165 and I'm 5'6", so
Okay, so you weigh less than the average woman.
not a surprise.
No. Here's the thing. The average weight of of an American male at 5'9" probably shouldn't be 160. It probably should be maybe 170, 175 because of muscle mass. But we're also seeing people who are not eating enough protein and not exercising at all. So the issue is, so the joke I just said to GPT was, that makes me sad. I'm just going to assume it's all raw muscle. Just all these super ripped women and men just bringing the average up. They're all very healthy.
Jacked.
They got good blood pressure, low sodium.
Big bones.
So we already put fluoride in the water. Let's just add like some testosterone and some Ozempic. You just get your
TRT?
full suite of whatever you need. Just to put it in the government puts it in the water.
Go straight Colombian.
I wonder if there are
white.
societies where they do that. Isolated pockets where they're like, let's just dose the entire population locally, just for as experiments. I wouldn't put it past humans to do something like that.
Tim's just arguing with ChatGPT about fluoride. So.
I do this all the time. Does atrazine turn frogs gay? The claim that atrazine, a herbicide, turns frogs gay is a misinterpretation of scientific research. The studies, particularly those of Tyrone Hayes, have shown that atrazine can cause hermaphroditism, is that what it is? And other reproductive abnormalities in amphibians at certain concentrations. This means that atrazine exposure can lead to the development of both male and female sex organs in some frogs, potentially affecting their reproductive behavior and success. However, the phrase "turns frogs gay" is an oversimplification and misrepresentation of the scientific findings.
Why does ChatGPT think everyone's turning gay? Why is everyone turning gay, ChatGPT?
Why do you think rates of self-identified LGBTQ are going up among younger generations
Maoism.
of Americans?
What kind of answers can it give us?
Greater social acceptance, increased awareness and education, cultural shift, supportive environments, and changing definitions and understandings. Yes. Okay, hold on. Do you think maybe
Changing definitions.
endocrine disruptors? I've spelled that way wrong. Could be playing a role. I do. I think it's endocrine disruptors. There is some evidence that exposure to certain endocrine disruptors can affect sexual development. There was one study that found there was a birth control in the 80s that was very effective. However, in the instance that a woman did get pregnant while on the birth control, the likelihood that her baby would be female and a lesbian was like 90% or something. What?
That's crazy.
Endocrine disruptors are real. There's microplastics in everything. We know that they're endocrine disruptors, and we know that they're having a serious impact. So, the thing is, it's funny when a lot of conservatives say things like, oh, this is all social contagion or whatever. And I'm like, maybe a lot of it, but I do think it's possible. This is when did we shift into heavy plastics for all of our products? I mean, when I was a kid, we got our lunches served in foil, in aluminum foil. It was a tray made of metal. And if you go to an antique store, everything was metal and glass. And then into the 80s and 90s, plastics just took over everything. I mean, when I was a kid, we still had glass bottle sodas at all the corner stores. Now I go into the gas stations, all plastics.
Glass is infinitely recyclable, correct? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, just a rock, I guess.
Yeah.
But
because I know like metals aren't. But
what is it, like biphenyls and stuff in PCBs or whatever, and the plastics are leaching into everything we consume. And so, I think a large component of why we're seeing a big uptick is like we've hyperdosed this generation, our generation and the next generation on endocrine disruptors.
I've got this hypothesis. You hear about microplastics in the human testicles is like off the charts right now. They're testing guys, and almost every guy they come up with has some level of microplastics.
Mine are mostly plastic.
Mostly plastic at this point. So I'm like, well, there's this mushroom that eats plastic and turns it into sugar. Pestiolopsis microspore. If you could get this stuff into the nuts and get it on those plastics, it would digest those into sugar.
Keep your fungus out of my nuts.
So you take these little graphene buckyballs, these C60s, and you put the fungus in the buckyball and then send it through the body to locate the plastics and then let the stuff out. I don't know if it's going to work.
And then people get fungal infections in their body.
That's
and they're
like worst
why am I
case.
dying?
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
I don't want to be an early adopter on that.
I'm not going to sit around and wait and cry and say nothing can be done. Let's get proactive about this and get the plastic out of our nuts collectively, gentlemen.
I think this is what RFK Jr. he nails perfectly. And this is clearly what he cares about the most in his campaign is environmental toxins that they're everywhere, from pesticides to plastics and more. We are eating this stuff. And so, we have glass bottles that we refill with filtered water that we have from a well here. And then we also have plastic. Some people don't care. And so it's easy for us to just say, okay, fine, whatever, we'll get plastic. But we also have the glass for people who want glass instead. And then, trying to be cognizant of this, we'll go to farms and get wax paper wrapped meat products, but it's becoming increasingly impossible. Even local farms will vacuum seal their meat in plastic.
Yeah, I'm not saying all this stuff is false. I've found it hard to sort fact from fiction because you get a lot of spurious health claims, and you get a lot of nuts who are convinced all kinds of things, hurt them. Right? You get the people who are like worried that, the 5G is hurting them, and all of these things that are like clear. And I'm not trying to put this in the same class as those kinds of things, but I found it really hard to get good data. Maybe this is just the state of science. Maybe these things haven't been studied. So it's. I found it really hard to sort fact from fiction. I don't know how other people here do it. I have a science background. I find it hard to sort fact from fiction in these areas.
Ridiculously challenging.
Yeah.
I'll make I don't even know if the microplastics are in the nuts.
Yeah.
I just heard that
it
was, and the number was like 96% of men tested. So I assumed it was more real because it was more extreme.
Right. I bought metal kids for my metal plates for all my kids. Like we use all metal in my house now. So I'm like, well, might as well be sick. But it's like I don't really know. I'm just kind of doing the like parenting. I'm worried and I want my so I just do it. But figuring it out is really hard.
You ever get the receipts now? I tend not to touch receipts. That plastic film that goes on the receipt. Apparently, Luke Rukowski's like, I don't want it. I trust you. Keep.
I heard this story too.
That one's plausible.
Estrogen on it, or
it's
whatever.
not. It also doesn't get the food tests. So yeah, the fact that it gets.
What are you talking about?
Receipts, printed receipts, apparently have some new plasticky film that gets into your skin and goes into your bloodstream.
They have for a long time. It's all the heat receipts. I mean, Target was using these 20 years ago when I worked at Target. So
and it goes into your skin.
Yeah, I should read more about it. It's just one of those things where like I don't know if it's true, but I can feel that filmy crap on the
touch it. Yeah.
It's so low cost to just not to handle those receipts less, and it's like, well, I could just.
I haven't taken a receipt intentionally in a long time, man.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, check this out! I asked GPT, do receipts have plastic that gets in your skin? Yes, receipts can contain chemicals like bisphenol A, BPA, and bisphenol S, which are used in thermal paper. These chemicals are considered endocrine disruptors and can be absorbed through the skin upon contact with the receipts, While occasional handling of receipts is generally considered low risk, frequent or prolonged exposure may increase the potential for these chemicals to enter the body. Using alternatives like digital receipts or handling receipts minimally can reduce exposure. What?
And funnily enough, we have
So CVS is like really screwing with people.
Absolutely. Those are like a mile long.
Those are the people that work there. That's
federal laws on drug laws about things being chemically similar. So if I go cheat and I change the chemical a little bit and it gets you high, I can charge you under opioid laws without you can be charged under opioid laws without it literally being the same chemical. They're actually, my understanding is the same standards don't exist for some of these plastics and various things. So there'll be a study that comes out and it's like, oh, like bisphenol A is an endocrine disruptor. They're like, oh, well, we'll alter the molecule to something that's like very likely to be biologically similar, but because the evidence isn't there, and the burden is in the opposite direction, that they're able to do some of this.
You know what's funny is that like every generation in the past 100 years had something seep into their body. We can go back. We had, remember the radium girls? The radium, they were putting radium on everything. Then you get to asbestos, and people got mesothelioma. Then you had lead.
The lead paint craze.
The lead paint craze, but also the lead and gas in the air everyone's breathing in. Now we have our plastic endocrine disruptors.
But lead is an example to me. That one's still an open question, whether that was a selection effect or real. It's really hard with all these statistical things, whether it's just a selection effect. If it turns out that lead was in poorer areas where there was more likely to be crime and more likely to be, and I'm not saying the lead hypothesis is false, but it's when I try to dig into that one, it's actually, how do you disentangle statistical claims when you can factor in the fact that there can be all kinds of selection effects in terms of what's producing these disparities, and it just ends up being so hard to figure out what's true and what's
the
not.
Romans used lead pipes. I think they did. Romans, and then was that caused the downfall of the empire? I'm just kidding.
No,
guys.
what caused
No, it was the
TikTok,
plastic.
everyone making everyone a citizen is what caused the downfall of the empire.
There's a lot of things.
That was a big one.
Yeah.
Whatever
was a turning
I'm the most mad about right now is what caused the downfall of the Romans.
Climate. I know what it is. Climate change. I was just thinking. The Romans used lead pipes. Yeah,
Romans
extensively.
took too many receipts and turned gay.
Yes. Everyone knows that.
And then what? Asbestos? Did you mention the asbestos nastiness?
Oh, this is brutal because we were looking at a building in West Virginia to buy a while ago, and it was great. It was moderately priced, and then they said, "But there's asbestos everywhere," and I was like, "Okay, bye." Like, there's no way, unless you want to give me the building, and then I'm going to spend that much money fixing this.
Even if it's exposed asbestos, they'll be like, "Don't worry about it, because unless you brush up against it, you're fine. But like, just bang it on the wall will cause it to vibrate and come off the wall. It's nasty." Yeah, the Romans, they were at peak production, producing about 80,000 metric tons of lead per year for their water irrigation supply network.
Why?
Lead, just so easy
it was
to
great
use
metal.
and heavy
It was
and didn't
easy.
rust.
Yeah, isn't it like easy to press?
Yeah, it's soft. You can make it. It was very easy for them to make it into pipes and stuff like that because of how soft it is.
Wow. So they just rotted their brains until everything fell apart.
Man.
They were all crazy as hell. Madder than a hatter comes from the fact that hatters used to use lead in the hats, and you'd end up.
I thought it was
getting-
mercury.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was mercury. Right.
Yeah, they would use mercury and then eventually go insane.
Yep.
Madder than a hatter.
You're correct.
What a wild time when they would just be like, "You have syphilis. Drink this mercury," and they'd be like, "Okay." And did it work? I mean, like, why would they do it unless it worked?
Right, but if all of history is us being insane about all health and medical claims, like, why do I believe that that's not true now? I mean, you only have one body, so I appreciate being conservative about it and wanting to be safer about things. But I kind of assume that we're basically just as wrong as we've been about everything as we have been always, and so the odds are that any given claim is like probably insane.
I saw a meme like what Tim was talking about. It said, "You got ghosts in your blood, so you should do cocaine about it." Man, I don't know what's wrong with you. You got ghosts in your blood. Do some cocaine about it.
All right, everybody, we're going to go to a super chat. So smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com. Click join us to support the show. If you like the work we do and you want to make sure it keeps going, we rely on you as members to make everything keep functioning. In the meantime, we will read your super chats. And if anybody wants to super chat some questions for our good friend ChatGPT, depending on the reasonableness of the question, we will ask our friend ChatGPT to answer. There's probably some good ones. All right. Alpha Turkey says, somehow Disney managed to create a show where in a galaxy far away, black kids are born with no father. Star Wars is woke, Marvel is woke, and the boys lost it with season 4. Is season 4 the new season, or was that last season? I mean, that's racist. Why would Star Wars do that? That's so racist.
They had kids come from broken homes.
No, they just had they're lesbian space witches who used the Force to make a baby.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh my God. That's like
I'd use the Force to make babies.
Mary was conceived of the Holy Spirit kind of.
Yeah, not
meme
space
magic.
witches though.
Yeah, apparently.
Token Black Guy says, how do people feel the new track "Let You Go" is dope?
Thank you so very much. I
Good beat.
appreciate it.
Good beat, good chorus too.
That's the new one.
Yep.
Let it go.
Let you go.
Let you go.
All right. Karen Manning says, "Can you have Joe Neiman good logic on? He's trying to unspeech Trump. He's friends with Viva Fry. He's an interesting person. We'll take a look. Look at this. We got Quantum Strange Quark. He says Jesse Waters mentioned Timcast on the 5 today. Oh, did he? What did he say? Member from 39 months. Rock on, brother. Did he mention a good thing about us, or did he say that guy's awful? What a terrible show. Don't watch it. Watch Fox News instead."
No such thing as bad publicity.
No, I've been on Jesse's show several times. He's a good dude.
him a lot.
I like him. Yeah, he's got a good show. He's funny too.
Jesse's great.
Let's go. Joseph says, "Tim, huge fan since 2020. Can you please shout out my brother's GoFundMe? He's 31 years old, single father of 2. Their mom died 2 years ago. Now he's in the hospital bedridden with end-stage liver failure, hoping for a transplant. Thanks. At Dempsey OSTVIG. Sorry to hear it, man. Best of luck."
Yeah, I just did a liver flush, which was really, really life-changing. If you've never done anything like that, it's worth looking into. Gallstones. You release a bunch of gallstones.
Oh. T-Rex Pet Shop says, "We're moving to Arizona to vote for Kerry Lake. If you want to give to our moving fund, I'll even send some mealworms for your chickens if you put an address in Venmo, T-Rex Pet Shop. Best of luck. We have to build the new coop, the chicken coop.
Yeah, a little central planning. I was talking to Kim about that.
Yeah, it's going to be relatively simple, but good. Designed better, knowing our restrictions and limitations and what the chickens need.
Will there be an irrigation canal?
Yeah, I think we're planning. Yeah, so when we built Chicken City, we actually built pans where you could it was a sewer system that had a pipe going out. So when you ran the hose, it would just wash it away. But the chickens did not want to sleep above it. They wanted to sleep in a different spot because they just like to go up high. And so we were like, we built this thing where they could perch. So now we're adapting. We're going to build the same thing where they can perch because they like to sleep high, and then put the pan underneath that. And then you'll be able to hose it out and it'll funnel through the tubes, the chicken sewer system.
Wow.
Oh, this was big news we didn't get to. Draxus Storm Shadow says, breaking news, Supreme Court overturns bump stock ban in 6-3 ruling. And a federal court overturned the pistol brace ruling as well. So we are winning.
Yes.
Too much, actually. I'm getting sick of it. I'm getting sick of winning.
Just get used to it, man.
Well, as soon as Trump gets back in. Cameron Keir says they need to broadcast the debate from a retirement home. That's the only way people are going to watch.
I'm really excited about this debate.
Isaac Vanderbilt says the debate needs to be at the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah, something.
It sounds more exciting than it would be, though. Just standing there. You know what I mean?
Some say it's the best Coliseum, the greatest Coliseum. Oh, that'd be great.
Matthew Hammond says Woodrow Wilson was the first demented president. It has been said that his wife signed some bills. Really? Is that true?
Yeah. I think he had a stroke,
Had a
correct?
stroke while he was in office. Yeah.
That's actually false. Every president was a demented president.
Yes.
Maybe not every, but not all.
Joe LaKyle says, Phil, let you go. More, please.
Thank you very much. There will be another video coming in probably a little bit. It's not going to be super soon. This one's got a little time to baste, but there will be another one, and then another one after that, too.
Another video or another song?
Another video.
Of the same song?
No.
Oh,
Different song, good, because,
Do you guys ever release songs in different forms, like the same song with a different genre twist on top?
We've done acoustic versions of songs, yeah. There's actually there's acoustic versions of like 2 weeks and what if 2 weeks and Forever in Your Hands rolling around the internet somewhere.
We were actually talking about doing that as like an artistic take. We have one song we're working on where we're like, we could do 4 different versions of it in different styles.
Yeah, I've been into country lately. That'd be fun.
We could do like the country version and,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting.
How about a national anthem? Have you thought about having an anthem?
Like a Freedamistani anthem.
We should do.
No, this is the free nation of Freedamistan.
There we go.
Exactly.
So we need a national
If
anthem.
we did the national anthem in metalcore, that'd be hot.
It'd have to be a specific anthem for here. We couldn't write.
You wouldn't just want to do the national anthem, isn't it?
Take
Free?
the national anthem and do it for here.
The flag has a rooster on it.
Yeah, it's got to reflect what we got.
You go, oh, say, can't you sing? And it's like, it'd be so hardcore.
All right, Heron Gaming News says, I ordered 2 bags of Appalachian Nights. Can you please send Ian to Alberta to hand deliver my coffee and use his brain power to help the Oilers win the cup?
Oh, I'm not an Oilers fan. I feel dirty just being asked. I'd love to go to Alberta, though. That'd be cool.
Daniel Sotelo says, sending this from the delivery room for our third baby.
Congrats.
Welcome, baby Adam Paul. Congratulations.
Making babies is good.
See, you don't need the wife doesn't need the epidural when she's watching Timcast. It's just such a soothing and relaxing show that brings such joy. It relieves all pain.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Solving the baby problem.
That's right.
The show.
There you go. Let's go. Draxus Storm Shadow says, yesterday pistol brace rule was vacated. Today bump stock ban was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. We are winning.
It's pretty clear that this court is not going to allow rules or that are presented to it created by agencies. Both the bump stock ban and the brace ban, if they actually want them, they still can try and get Congress to pass legislation to outlaw them, and that possibly would stand. But this is for people that aren't familiar with it, but the two decisions in particular, they got vacated because of the fact that the ATF has overstepped its bounds by putting these things on, making rules about these things, specifically with the pistol brace, because they had already had a decade of selling them to the public, and they had multiple papers sent out by the ATF that said they were fine. And then when Biden came in with Garland, they were just like, well, we're going to go ahead and make a whole bunch of felons in America because we hate Americans. So,
yeah, messed up. They lose. Motoso says magic is hella gay. That is not correct. Magic is based.
Yeah.
However, the later sets, they've been getting kind of woke. So
that sucks.
And I'm concerned because I actually have some collector stuff. I've got a sealed Portals box. I have a sealed revised booster pack. It's not worth that much. But I'm concerned that what they're doing is going to destroy the value in the secondary market of some of these collectibles.
I'll be honest. I'm in it for the mechanics. And if it's called like twisted, I'm not going to say super offensive stuff, but if the thing's called like Twisted Fairy or Twisted Dinosaur, I don't really care what the card's called. I don't really care what the image is on the art. As long as it's a badass card, I'll have 4 of them in my deck. So let the wokeify commence. I don't care.
I think a lot of what the problem is they've gone after the player base, because that's what tends to happen. It's like the manufacturers or the producers of these things, they'll put mild stuff in the actual game or whatever it is, whether it be a video game or whatever. But a lot of the storm happens when people go to the what's it called, drafts and stuff like that, or they go to the functions and there's this person has said the wrong thing or is wearing the wrong thing, or they say something offensive. So a lot of it is because of the actual producers of the games attacking their own community.
Yep,
that's lame.
Yeah, there was that card shop several years ago that had a Kekistani flag in a little bucket on top of a shelf, and they got kicked out of the distributors network, banned from hosting events, and they were like, "What?"
Just horrible.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff is actually just for the employees. That's who it's actually for.
Yeah,
it's when your employees, 90% of them have the same ideology, and it turns out they'll take some perks for themselves that aren't in the interest of the business or anything else.
Yeah. All right. We'll grab some more super chats. Let's go. Let's see. What is this one? NYBSFP says, with the amount of money these people are spending, I would think bets in the alt gambling market to influence odds in a small expense. What was that in reference to? I can't remember. What were we talking about?
I was talking about the odds for someone talking.
Oh, right.
87%.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we need. I mean, to me, one of the worst things the government regulates is futures markets. I mean, allowing unregulated or allowing proper futures markets, they could be maybe slightly regulated, but be so good. We would know so much more about what was going to happen if we actually allowed people to bet on it, and it's illegal because it would be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. Let's read this one. We got Iron War Machine says, hey, Tim, it's my birthday this weekend. Could I please get a shout out to the small business I work at, Strange Tactical? We are a small gunsmith gunmaker in Orem, Utah. Nothing would make me happier than seeing the business thrive and my boss is happy. Well, best of luck, Strange Tactical. Shout out. Happy birthday as well. All right. PRCNTM. That's a name. The extended clip shows everyone sitting not 4 seconds later, so the least amount of assumptions is Biden addled brain sat down too soon and realized it halfway down his timing was off.
That's what I got too.
Yeah, totally possible.
That they were all just going to sit down.
He tried to sit down too early and the chair wasn't where he thought it was. Because he might have just snapped to and been like, where am I? Sitting. Oh, sitting, and then his wife's like, hold on, Joe. And he's like, okay.
It's a
Here's-
poop.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good one. Novel Theory says they may have cleaned up the transcript before releasing it, which would explain their panic. Join the Discord. Yeah, they don't want to release the audio of Biden's discussion with her because they may have translated for him. This is what the media does. The White House may have done it as well. The White House does do this. Biden will say something incomprehensible, and then the transcript will come out, and it'll be corrected because they wrote the speech in advance. They know what he was supposed to say. He didn't say it, and then they just put in the transcript what he was supposed to say. The media loves doing this thing where Biden will say, he'll be talking about, we got this problem, with Israel. You got a certain amount of facility. And then everyone's just like, what did he just say? Like, was that a word? And then what the media will do is, instead of putting the quote, they'll write, speaking fiercely about the conflict in Israel, he condemned Hamas. And you're like, no, he did not make a coherent thought at all. But the media just paraphrases instead of quoting. Translating for Joe Biden. Stop doing it. Even conservative outlets do it. They got to stop doing it. I would just love one day to see the headline be like, Joe Biden said at a conference, at a conference for Democrats, when I was a young man working in the pharmaceutical, and then just ... incomprehensible. I found
That'd be hilarious.
in the news article.
If like the Washington Post started in the title, Biden slams Schoonerberger, and then it's the most clicked article that they have in like months. They're like, oh God, this is going to catch fire. And then they start doing it.
Model.
Yeah.
I think we have to, because too many outlets will write, Biden expresses dismay over signing of new bill. And it's like, no, he said, and like, that's a different thing to say. And I don't know if it's positive or negative. It reminds me of that Simpsons joke where there's like two Russian guys playing checkers or something. And then the guy stands up at screaming at Lisa, but underneath it says, you are a very nice young woman. I'm glad to help you. Let me know what you need. But he's going, and she runs away screaming, not realizing. So when Joe Biden comes out and he says, we got Israel for some, he might be saying, I love what they're doing with Hamas. They're really great people, for all we know. The assumption that because he's excitable, what he's thinking is incorrect. And so the headline should read as such. Joe Biden says,
Take him at his word.
Exactly.
Or even not using words like says, just say Joe Biden slurs.
Or he says, Trinina Shabbat pressure, Batacaf care, next now recent, pack Cadillac, pack ack lack. That was one of them.
Yeah.
They should put Joe Biden slams pack Cadillac, ack lack. But they don't do it. They say Joe Biden praises PACT Act.
Do you think we get the truth about things more or less than in the past? Like the press?
More.
Yeah, I think we do get more.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we just assume, because we didn't have the ability to counter these people through internet research, that you'd read the newspaper and go, wow, look at that. And there's a phenomenon called the Gelman amnesia effect. Are you familiar with it?
Very much.
Back in the day, it was very a very important thing to consider. That you open a newspaper and the front page says, President, declares war, and you're like, wow. And it's just like, bad guys in Syria are doing this thing. They're launching high-bar missiles, and you're like, wow. You turn the page, and then you're a plumber, and you read some story about plumbing. You go, what? That's not how plumbing works. This is totally wrong. But that other story must have been true, and that's why I said high-bar, because I was intentionally slurring HIMAR, because if anybody knew, they'd be like, that's not a real thing. A friend of mine got third place in the X Games a long time ago, and the front page of the LA, I think it was the LA Times, wrote that she was the first woman to perform a backslide on a railing. There's no such thing. And we were laughing our asses off when we were like, a backslide? Like, they just make something up. They did not know what they were talking about. They didn't fact check it. No editor caught this. That's how the news works.
Is Gelman amnesia where you'll read one thing questionable, then you'll read the second thing that is blatantly wrong, and you'll disbelieve the first thing you saw?
No.
As a result?
It's that amnesia, in that you'll read a story that says, uranium used to clean teeth. And you'll go, how about that? Clearly nonsensical. You'll turn the page, and then it'll say, Magic the Gathering is the greatest board game. And you, Ian, knowing this, go, that's not correct. That's a fake news story. But you've already forgotten that the story you read in the first place was probably fake too.
Oh, so they'll just bleed the market with fake trash, so you forget about the first thing.
You don't transfer. It's that when you see the newspaper get it wrong about things you don't transfer that lack of confidence.
Oh.
Right. You don't apply
you
that
don't
logic to
transfer
the
it.
other stories.
You forget.
Yeah.
You know that when they write about your expertise, they're wrong. You assume they're correct when it's not your expertise.
Okay.
Instead of just realizing they're always wrong. Now we have the internet. So they write bunk BS and we go, let me fact check that real quick. Hey, look, I found multiple sources. That's not true.
Well, now we have the internet, so I don't even have to read anything I disagree with. I just only read things that already say what I want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
The AI will feed you.
Like you can just tell ChatGPT, don't give me answers that will upset me. Just tell me what I want to hear. And it'll be like, sure, you got it.
If you read things that you always agree with, you don't have a lumpy, weird, crappy looking brain. You got a nice smooth brain. It's very attractive.
Try to keep it as smooth as
That's
possible.
right.
Just write everything you read yourself.
There you go.
Never
Perfect.
disagree with it.
Perfect.
Evan 22 says, Evan 2281 says, when Woodrow Wilson was in the later part of his second term, it was believed his wife was running the country because of his mental decline.
Wow.
She definitely presided over cabinet meetings and things like that.
Wow.
Unreal.
Brown Bear says, one alternative to the Biden poop story, we've seen the note cards they give him that literally tell him when and where to sit down. He probably forgot he was supposed to keep standing up. Oh, that's fair too. I just think everybody's looking into it, trying to find an explanation. Any explanation, I think you could make a list and you can write down possibilities as to what he was doing. And my point is simply that pooping his pants is on that list. That's it. I didn't say it was 100%. I said it was, double digits, 10%. That's my point. Just 10%.
And if futures
Maybe.
markets were legal, we could have a clear betting market on whether Biden would poop his pants again.
But no, well,
Or did, or whatever. You know.
Trump said he pooped himself at the Resolute desk. Yeah. And then, so Trump said the desk has literally been soiled, so I don't know if I'll be using it. The left, the woke corporate press then ran a story saying Donald Trump claims Joe Biden climbed up on the Resolute desk and defecated on it. Trump never said that. He said it was soiled, to imply simply to anyone who's thinking that Biden was sitting at the desk when he crapped his pants. That is soiling it.
He's so good with picking like the exact right word. He's so good at it. There's one of Trump where he's like standing at a podium and there's like it's like during COVID and there's a speech and like the only thing he's crossed out is China virus. Like whatever they had said about COVID, he had just like you could see that he had like crossed out and written
China virus.
China virus.
Oh, he wrote that himself?
Yeah.
That was his.
Oh yeah, it's very good at nicknames.
He was just on Logan Paul's Impulsive. It was pretty entertaining. Did like an hour with him and Mike.
Rainwork says power is out all across Utah. I was on my way home and all the stoplights went out. It's currently 94 degrees outside. Possible cyber attack? Wow, really? That's hot. In Utah? Oof. Difficult. Don't know. Or sometimes the power goes out. What have we here? Let's see. Fixed Bayonet says, happy 249th birthday to the U.S. Army, 20-year vet. 4th Infantry Division, 2nd Infantry Division, 10th Mountain Division, 1st Cavalry Division. This we'll defend. Hear, hear. Right on, man. All right. Justin Bowles says, Biden is going to resign on Juneteenth to be altruistic, claim distress over his son, also Las Vegas survivor, and I am thankful the Supreme Court stood with our constitutional rights today. Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Joe Biden is going to step down on Juneteenth and say it should be Michelle Obama.
You think?
No.
He will pardon Hunter before anything.
Biden will?
Yeah, Joe will if he win or lose, I think he's going to pardon Hunter. But also the question is, will Hunter actually get jail time? Because if they say probation, there will be no pardoning. He's going to go, look, you got off easy, make a few phone calls, nothing changes for you. So
the tax case he probably doesn't get, or the tax case is the more serious of the two. The gun case, he probably doesn't get jail
I don't
time.
like either of these cases. The gun case, I think, should not have been brought. I think it's unconstitutional to begin with. And the tax case, at least from what I was reading of it, you just make him pay it. You know what I mean?
Well, he has paid, or Kevin Morris has paid it.
Yeah.
Yeah, has paid his back taxes.
In which case, I think the penalty should be very, very, very minor. The only reason many of the charges against him in the tax case stand is because they intertwine with other things. So the argument is he failed to pay the proper amount of taxes 1 year. Typically not a crime. Typically they make you pay it. He stopped making payments on one payment from, I think, 2015. Okay, make him pay it. However, combined with all of this is that he was drawing profits from his company while he owed taxes and then partying with it. You combine those things and they say, okay, now you are committing tax crimes. I still think your best bet is just to get the money from him. I don't like the idea of people going to prison for taxes. It's just stupid. Stupid. Right. I don't like most taxes to begin with because they're used to just perpetuate the Federal Reserve monetary theory broken system, but that's a whole other conversation. Let's go. Vroom says, Luke Combs just released an album all about fathers. As a man who recently lost my first child to stillbirth, it really hits me hard. We need more pro-father in culture. Rest in peace, my daughter, Maisie. Sorry to hear, man. Sorry to hear. But agreed. We must champion fathers. Get rid of government says Alex Jones was ordered to liquidate his assets. We did have that one pulled up, actually. The post-millennial judge orders liquidation of Alex Jones's personal assets to pay Sandy Hook families. And I believe that there was a show hosted by Owen Schroyer and Roger Stone saying it may be their last show on InfoWars. It's kind of wild. However, what if Owen Schroyer just starts a new studio and Alex Jones is a host on it? What can they do?
He personally owes all the money, right?
Sure.
It's not his entity
And
or anything that
That's what it says.
He has all the money.
They want to liquidate his personal assets, which is,
But
InfoWars is one of them.
Alex Jones will still be hosting a show.
He'll be able to keep doing a show.
They're trying to stop him from doing it. That's literally what they've said. The news reports say that they want to take his X account from him so that he can't promote any new shows or endeavors.
Well, not to defend, again, obviously this is all ridiculous and none of it should have happened in the first place, but it's that it's an asset. So if they're able to seize his assets because he's in debt, they're making the claim that his Twitter.
It's literally reported by Reuters to prevent him from promoting any other business venture.
Okay.
Right. They said it's akin to a customer list we should get, but they said they want to make sure he can't promote any other ventures. And they said that he's been promoting Dr. Jones's Naturals, his father's company, which is his way of circumventing rights. I'm like, it's insane because if he's shutting out a different company owned by someone else, how can you call that circumventing anything? You're allowed to do reads for anybody.
Yeah, I don't see how you can stop him from continuing to speak and continuing to be popular. You can make sure he doesn't own anything. I do agree that that's within the government's power. I don't think they're going to be able to stop him from speaking. And even if they take his account, he starts a new. I mean, he'll start a new.
And then what happens when Owen Schroyer starts a new studio called Information Battle? And he has the lead show is hosted by Alex Jones, who's just an employee who makes $48,000 a year. But as an employee, he gets access to the company car. He gets access to the company jets. He gets the company card for all of his business expenses and meals. He can use the company ranch for staying.
You have to avoid. Does anyone know the term? It's like something constructive, whatever. It's as long as it's not a. Does anyone know this term? It's not as long as it's not a certain type of construction. Like as long as. If it's real that it's really Owen Schroyer's company and not Alex Jones, the tests get complicated. And governmental tests here. Whether something is a continuance of a previous entity and you're faking it.
Sure, and they will go after him no matter what. But it is kind of crazy to think Alex Jones, being as popular and prominent as he is, would be an expensive hire. If you want to get him to host a show, so his company's gone. Owen Schroyer says, well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to start my own company. Having Alex Jones as a primetime host would be a major accomplishment. Alex Jones is going to say, well, you got to pay me a bunch of money. He says, well, I don't have a lot of money to pay you. We can only pay you a small salary. But we can give you access as benefits for being a contractor for the show. We'll pay the lease on your car. We'll, cover, we'll give you a corporate card for all your business meals, allowing Alex Jones to live at a very high standard of living on things he doesn't own that you couldn't reasonably seize. No one said they're being reasonable, though, so...
Yeah, so I think that works. Where Alex gets in potential trouble is if it turns out that he was constructing something where it wasn't really Owen's company, where they had some secret agreement.
They'll just claim it is.
That's the stuff, right? But I'm just you have to have discoverable evidence. You have to be able to incriminate yourself in some way.
Yeah.
If it, and so as long as there's nothing, as long as there would be no discoverable proof of that kind of thing, I think it works fine.
I mean, shouldn't they want him? I mean, I know the money is really secondary, but shouldn't they want him to earn some kind of income so they can continue to seize it?
That's right.
Also,
but they don't. They want to just shut InfoWars down.
And the families that work for InfoWars, the company, the men and women that work there and their families, like to go after those people right now by destroying their livelihoods is completely insane. For those Sandy Hook families that have already suffered enough to cause this suffering now on all these new families is like... it's counterproductive.
Oh, yeah, because they're not just going after Alex. They're going after all of his employees.
It's a lot of people.
All of his employees, all of his staff, they're putting them all out of work. They're sending all their kids hungry because Alex Jones did something wrong 12 years ago.
They do that to anyone, right? Like the whole basket of deplorables thing that Hillary Clinton said. All of the people that go into the basket like that she would say, or anyone would say, go into the basket. There's a massive, massive part of the population that would use the government to oppress those people if they were given the opportunity. We were talking about this morning on the culture war, how a lot of times libertarians think the problem is the government. And whereas the government is the executor of the problem is the actual people that you live with that want to use the government to oppress you or take your property or hurt you. And we're seeing now that they're actually becoming more and more successful based on politics, based on the political affiliation, whether it be Alex Jones or whether it be Donald Trump or whether it be Roger Stone or any of the number of people that have been, wrongly or, I forget, I'm losing the word, but accused of things with tenuous amounts of evidence or whatever. That's become a norm. And so there are a lot of people that want to use the government to hurt other Americans.
I can make the argument, like, if they've done something wrong, restitution, but like these things have collateral damage. So it's the families that weren't involved in this Sandy Hook thing that were working at companies owned by Alex Jones. Like, yo, you drop bombs, you got to be careful of the collateral.
The collateral is acceptable because it's guilt by association. There's not to them. You're not collateral.
That only
you're just you're just as liable as Alex Jones because you're close to him.
I understand that state of mind, but it's not a scalable state of mind because if everyone on Earth is collateral to your mission and you're willing to kill them all to get your goal, then you've failed as a human. Like, we have to take care of the innocent.
So, the only thing that I understand what you're saying, but I feel like the thing you're missing is they don't care.
I don't know who they are.
Well, the people that would use the government, people that would use the law to oppress their political opponents. The goal is oppression. If like the goal of putting Donald Trump on trial is to oppress him, is to use the government to hurt him. The goal of putting Alex Jones and all the people surrounding him, on trial and trying to take his money is to harm him. It's not about justice. It's about punishing them for having the wrong ideas. We have long ago left the time when the government was not used as a political cudgel against your political opponents. That is a reality of today, and that's literally the reason why people like Orrin McIntyre say things like "use the government against the left." And to be honest with you, I mean, I have a hard time coming up with a good argument against that. Not saying that I endorse it, but I have a hard time saying, well, you can't because of blah, 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 because all of the arguments that I have, they're not compelling and they'll be tossed out.
And that is a great way to wrap up for the night. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com to support our work. You click join us. Your membership is what makes the company function and exist. And you can also buy Cast Brew coffee at castbrew.com. We'll just start with Jim. You want to shout anything out?
Yeah, definitely. I'm at WashingtonExaminer.com. You can follow me on X at Jim Antle.
Right on.
I'm on X at Jeremy Kauffman. I'm a New Hampshire maximalist. You got to come to New Hampshire if you're a libertarian. Didn't show it enough on this show, but you need to.
You doing Pork Fest?
I will be there all next week. It's going to be fun.
So can people just get a ticket and go to Pork Fest?
Yeah, you can get a ticket and still come. So if you're in the New Hampshire area or you want to come up to New Hampshire, porkfest.com. It's a week-long libertarian festival. Even if you only come up for a couple of days, it's very affordable. So, and I will be there all next week. Anyone who wants to meet me in person.
PORC
You
Pork?
are so much better at my job than I am.
Yeah, I'm going to
PORCFEST.com. Thank you, Ian, #1 Free State Recruiter.
My pleasure. Also, great, lively show. Awesome. Good to see you guys. So let's do this again sometime. I'm Ian Crossland, and check me out, iancrossland.net. That'll portal you to all my stuff. I'll see you later.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can catch us this summer on tour with Megadeth and Mudvayne on the Destroy All Enemies tour, starting August 2nd, going through till September 29th. Our brand new single is available right now. It's called Let You Go. You can check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon Music, Deezer, and YouTube. And don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
So far, man. Cheers, y'all.
We'll see you all with clips throughout the weekend, and then we're back on Monday. Thanks for hanging out.